All right, all right. Good afternoon. Let me see a special good afternoon to all of you locked onto the Civic Vibes social media platform. It's our pleasure to welcome you here. Those of you who are already locked onto that live information from Civic Vibes. A very interesting discussion, a very informative discussion is coming up your way this afternoon. All that we ask, those of you who are already there, please do us a favor, do yourself a favor as well by sharing that live. Let that live go viral this afternoon because we can promise you the discussion coming up here this afternoon will be one that you don't want to miss. And obviously, information is never worth holding to yourself. It is much more impactful when it is shared and digested among many other people. So again, a special good afternoon to all of you on the live here this afternoon. Civic Vibes program is here, and we just want to thank you for being part and parcel of our engagement here this afternoon. This afternoon in our company, we have none other than co-host of this program, as always, pretty Marcelline Edwards. She's there with us already, and she will be hitting the road, as it were, in just a bit. The other usual suspect, the other usual co-host, that is Mrs. Paula Celestine. She is not here this afternoon, will not be here with us in the flesh, but she is somewhere connected. And so Paula, good afternoon to you. It is a situation totally beyond her control that have her out of the frame here this afternoon. But a very good afternoon to Paula, to you and your family, wherever you are at this time as well. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you're always seeing our faces, Paula, myself, Marcelline every Sunday. So that is the usual thing by now. But this afternoon, we have two sons of the soils, I must say, in the name of Mr. Kent Edwards, Kent Vital, sorry. Where did I get Edwards? Economist Kent Vital. He is now the leader of an NGO in Dominica called NJAM, that is the National Joint Action Movement. We'll be hearing some more of that movement sometimes later down in the discussion. And also another erudite brother, usual contributor to Dominica's affairs. You know, he's out there, but his heart is still very much in Dominica. And that is none other than Mr. Jefferson Winston. A lot of you know him by the nickname Sharu. We'll be getting into discussion with this brother and also brother Kent Vital, you know, sometimes later. It's a very interesting discussion, I must say, with all this afternoon. So all I ask those of you who are already here, please just share the live. Let me move across to Mrs. Edwards now. She is here. She will be basically setting on the platform for what will be expounded on there later. So, Mrs. Edwards, Marcelline, I know you read me call it at Marcelline said, good afternoon to you, my dear, in a very special way.
Well, a pleasant good afternoon, Lofty. And I will still shout out Miss Paula Celestine. I know she's listening wherever. So a pleasant good afternoon to you guys. It's nice being here, co-hosting with you once again on Civic Vibes, Lofty. A very pleasant good afternoon to our guest, economist and leader of the NJAM movement. And we know what NJAM is. It is a National Joint Action Movement in Dominica. And Mr. Jefferson Winston, who we favorably call Jeff, who was a proprietor in the small business enterprise in Dominica and is still a voice for small business people in Dominica. A wonderful good afternoon to all our patriots, Facebook fans, the entire listening audience connected to Civic Vibes via Facebook Live, which is our official platform every Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. And, you know, or every Dominican and non-Dominican from the diaspora to Dominica and vice versa So greetings, all Dominicans. And it's a pleasure having you guys connected. So please share the live. And as I said, welcome again. I am Marcelline Edwards, co-hosting from New Jersey Tri-State on Civic Vibes Facebook Live platform. So I will pause and let our guest, or I'll move over to Loftus so that he can let our guests introduce themselves individually.
Yes.
Thank you, Lofty.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Marcelline. Indeed, a very good opening greetings, a very good opening salvo, as it were, warming up the listenership that is already piling on here, I must say. I'll get to some of those persons who are checking in here already. I'll get to some of the comments and the greetings in just a while. But let us get the conversation going. Let us get the opening remarks now from none other than our local brother, local son of the soil, economist. He held different hats, still continue to hold a lot of different hats in Dominica. Brother Kent Vital. Good afternoon to you, bro.
Edward Ting today,
okay. Where's Kent? Kent, where are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Kent,
Yes,
you'll have to excuse me, but for some reason that Edwards thing does not come in my head.
All right.
Well, maybe it's Marcelline.
Marcelline Edwards.
No. Kent needs a new baptism.
Okay. All right, but good icebreaker on the way. Brother Vital, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, my brother. Good afternoon. And good afternoon to all of you on here as well. My pleasure to be with you guys. And, the reason why we all do all of this is because we all love this special place called Dominica. And we want better for it. We want it to do better. We know it can do better. And therefore, we have these discussions. And hopefully, we will go beyond discussions and we will begin to get into actions. Then that's what NJAM is about. But Lofty, if I were to just say something to start, when I contemplated on the topic we have today, I was thinking through it, and it says rogue government and how it kills. So I recalled that scripture, and I kind of misplaced it, and I was trying to find it back, and my wife helped me get it back. And that scripture, your topic is really in scripture. Did you know that? No. Did you know that your topic is found in the Bible?
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, let me show you how.
Tell us.
Let me show you how. Because if you turn to Psalms 94 and verse 20, right? I'm going to read it from the NLT, the New Living Translation. And it really says, can unjust leaders claim that God is on their side? Leaders who permit injustice by their laws? And then the next verse goes on to say, they attack righteousness and condemn the innocent to death. You see the connection with your topic?
Yeah.
We're talking about a rogue government. We're talking about a government, leaders, right? Who permit injustice. And as a matter of fact, they do injustice. If you wanted to find a biblical definition of a rogue government, that's a rogue government, right? And then your next part says, and how it kills, but the scripture tells you that they attack righteousness and condemn the innocent to death. But there's and how
positive energy.
Yes, but you're right, positive energy. The next two verses is positive energy. The next two verses, 22 says, but the Lord is my fortress. My God is a mighty rock where he can hide. And the next one says, God will make the sins of evil people fall back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. The Lord our God will destroy them. So, when we pray, I hope I'm not, maybe I'm wearing a spiritual hat right now. But when we pray, often, many of us who understand prayer and who get into prayer, we often like to pray according to God's word. And I want to say to some of us and many of us who pray for our nation earnestly, pray according to Psalms 94, because we do know we have an unjust government. We do know we have a rogue government. We do know that they engage in injustice. And we do know they condemn the innocent to death. So what must be our prayer? Our prayer must be verse 22, that God will be our fortress, right? That God, in verse 23, will remove these evil people. Right? He will make their sin to fall back upon them. He will destroy them for their sins. And destroy in that sense, I'm thinking of, because I'm not against anybody individually. God will judge them. But from a national point of view, that he will remove their governance. He will destroy their governance. He will destroy their wickedness so that the people can get justice. So I just thought I would start with those few verses on the scripture. Yeah.
And just to reiterate that scripture for those listening or those just tuning in, Kent, what scripture is that? Psalms what?
Yes, that is from Psalms 94 and verse 20.
Okay. Yes,
Psalms 94. Maybe a little later on, I'll come back to it and compare it to another scripture that people often misinterpret.
So am I to say I was spirit led when I said that you are capable of using many hats?
Well, maybe.
Brother Vital.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, thank you, Brother Vital, for your opening remarks here. Let me move across now to our another special invited guest here this afternoon. Well, let me be frank. We did not invite him. He invited himself after he saw the promo. Mr. Winston, good afternoon.
Hey, blessings to you all, man. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to Mr. Vital, Brother Vital, and Marcy. When it comes for business, it's something that's very dear to my heart. And, I get all this call from all these young persons want to, create their own employment. And, I see that avenue just disappear, So I had to really call and put my input into that program, because it's something from time I've always tried to organize, as you know, Mr. Loftus, a small business association, to bring in every small business under one umbrella, because I saw where we were losing that avenue, that line, So yes, I did call, spoke to Marcelline and you all, and then, it's nice to know because you know what's going on. But I want to tell you, thank you for having me on the program. We give Dominican something of good, substance. Let them understand that, what we are bringing for is love for country, love for our brother man, love for the nation. We're not against a government. We just want a government that is right for the people. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Winston. Your opening remarks is quite succinct indeed. That certainly will set the platform for the discussion to follow in just a bit. But just before I move back to Marcelline Edwards, who will basically concretize the topic and kind of ask you guys the opening questions, let me just shout out one or two of our persons who are already locked to the live. We already have 100 and something persons here viewing this afternoon. And so again, we want to thank them from the desk of Civic Vibes. We have Elaine Laville, you are locked in. Good afternoon. Sabolox Jermaine, you're locked in as well. Marina Charles, Maury Jules, Vernie Vash is locked in. Jennifer Jean-Pierre is locked in. Eliza Lewis, Maria Paul, you are watching. Good afternoon to you. Phoebe Jones, you're locked in first. Good afternoon. Stephanie John Baptist and husband, good afternoon. Cyrus Raphael, good afternoon, known as Brother Sindo. Also, we have Augustine St. Louis, locked in and watching. Good afternoon to you as well. One Facebook name that goes by the name of Bad Mind Gal, Francis. Good afternoon to you as well. We have Didi Esther. That's a usual follow of Civic Vibes. Good afternoon to you as well, Didi Esther. Fifth Sunshine, Marvella Defoe, Angela Paul, Joseph Parilaw, Fifth Sunshine. We have one that goes by the name of Unbreakable Corin Quadrington Daily. Good afternoon to you folks. We have Miss Mervia Xavier watching. Good afternoon to you. Florence Butilia Joseph Dover, good afternoon to you as well. You know, we have Muriel George, we have Cuthbert Stedman, and the list goes on and on. We have Gertrude Abraham Deja is locked in. Also Omar Monel, just a few. I will try my very best to go through your comments and also to big up your listening and watching to the conversation as we move along here this afternoon as host. But Brother Ken Vital is here. Ken Vital is here to kind of give us the quote unquote professional aspects or the professional breakdown to the topic that we're discussing this afternoon, how rogue government kill a number of situations in a country. So that is Ken's job primarily to do there for us this afternoon. Brother Sharu, it was God inspired that he called us, he made contact, and so you heard him already. He will have the task this afternoon of breaking it down for you as an ordinary businesswoman, ordinary businessman. You know, he was right there. He's still right there. And so he will give you the quote unquote the details as to the topic we're discussing this afternoon. Marcelline will do her do, I will chime in, and we will have a very, very interesting conversation here this afternoon. Again, I just want to say a special good afternoon to all of you, and stay tuned and enjoy a very splendid and informative discussion this afternoon. Marcelline, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Loftus. And thank you, Mr. Vital and Jeff. Special thanks. I'm glad you all are here so we can have a very fruitful discussion this afternoon. And it is interesting how, Mr. Vital delved into the spiritual aspect of the as it relates to the topic we are about to discuss this afternoon. And I think we should refer to our Psalms, that's Psalm 94, and really, pray this rogue government out because I think the Psalm is not just there I think it's there for a particular purpose. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that spiritual aspect to the conversation, Mr. Vital. Last week, Sunday, we had a riveting discussion on the topic, rich leaders and poor masses, with two very powerful guests, attorney at law, Mr. Verbird III, and radio personality, Mr. Ian Magic Hughes, both from our sister isle, Antigua and Barbuda. And these men, and we, Loftus, Paula, and myself, we outlined an accurate parallel between the two Caribbean leaders and their outlandish and shameless styles of leadership that have amassed them unexplained wealth, while the rest of the masses, and that's, I'm talking about the citizens, are submerged in poverty. And we now have, better clarity as to what is happening to our brothers and sisters in Dominica, Antigua, and the rest of the Caribbean with similar corrupt Mugabe leadership, like the Gaston Skerritts and the Roosevelt Browns of the Caribbean and the world by extension. So that discussion gave rise for today's topic, rogue government and how it kills. First, let me define what is a rogue government and how it becomes rogue. A rogue government is a government that has infiltrated all its legal functioning institutions, including the Constitution and all the legal framework and structure of the land that the government should respect, abide under, and hold them accountable. A government becomes rogue when they believe that they do not have any accountability and responsibility to the voters, the citizens, and the noble offices of the land, which, some of them hold. When they understand themselves and they know that the entire voting process is rigged, the entire voting process is corrupt, so they know that they are systematically stealing elections cycle after cycle. And they know they don't have to be responsible to the citizens because it is not a legitimate process. It is a corrupt process. So when government is ignoring the voters who voted them in, when they are ignoring the citizens, when they are corrupting and destroying the essence of democracy, the institutions that help to hold them accountable, when they have infiltrated all these systems, of course, they have become rogue. So they have no interest in the development of the citizens. They have no interest in the healthcare of the citizens. They have no interest in the welfare and the security and the education and all the things that a democratically elected government are supposed to do and take care on behalf of its voters and citizens. And that is why electoral reform, it is important to have reforms because it is our process. Because if our process, it is a process where it is the gateway to democracy. And if a process is robust, if there is democracy and there is a robust process, those are the processes that work. Our governments that we elect will be more responsible and accountable to us. We will not have the issues of our jobs leaving our shores, of unemployment, of mendicancy, of decadence, of poor healthcare, of all our small businesses shutting down. Even the private sector, the large businesses, corporations within the private sector are shutting down as well simply because we do not have a government that is a democratic government. As I said, with a rogue government, that is what you get. So we are having in Dominica from the 18-man rogues who are accountable, who are not accountable to us. So what they are getting are people to support them in the ways they can best, steal from the people and corrupt the process. The Chinese, the citizenship by investments, some of the criminals that have stolen from their countries that have, money, they can afford to buy them out. They can afford to pay any amounts for diplomatic passports. And this in itself is where the allegiances are. It's not to the country. So they go about finding criminals like themselves. And that is what, we have proven that that's what they're accountable to. The foreigners and the criminals and these people, they are not accountable to us, the voters and the citizens. So they become rogue. And throughout history, there is nowhere in this world where a rogue or an illegitimate, incompetent, and corrupt government has ever delivered for its citizens. Nowhere in the world, nowhere in history. So it is wishful thinking to believe that the illegitimate rogue government in Dominica is going to deliver for Dominicans. When you look at places like Switzerland, Switzerland Switzerland is a place that have one of the most robust democracies in the world. Australia, Japan, and the United States to a certain extent. They are delivering for their people. Their people have jobs. They have access to healthcare. They can go to the court and find fairness and justice for grievances against the government because their institutions work. That is the reason we have to get our reforms and be adamant about it and ensure the process work. As I said before, it doesn't matter what is going on in other countries. It doesn't matter what is going on in the world. Dominica is our country, and we want it to be better. We want it to be a better country, not worse than prior to our ancestors' sacrifice, where they died for our country, where they fought slavery. They fought our colonial masters. We want our country to be better than before that sacrifice.
All right, Marcelline, thank you very, very much. And I would ask you now, Marcelline, to have your guest this afternoon, our guest here this afternoon, to start to chew on the rogue kind of government and exactly how it kills. Go ahead.
I'm not hearing you, Lofty.
You didn't? Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you now.
Okay, I was just telling you nice opening statements. But,
Yes,
but I was just asking you now if you can have our guest here, Mr. Vital, and also Mr. Winston, to just start to nibble on the topic we are expected to deliver on this afternoon, and as exactly how does a government, a rogue government that is, really kill certain aspects of society? I was just asking you to ask them that.
Well, yeah, they have heard the question. So, Mr. Vital, you can chime in.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. Marcelline, I think you did quite a good explanation.
Dynamite.
A little bit to the local context of what a rogue government is. And I had looked it up a little bit on the internet. I'm like, rogue government. And what I've come up with is this. It's a term that was made a bit popular by the US government, by the Bushes and so on and so forth. But it essentially means that it's a term applied by some international affairs to concerning governments that threaten world peace. But I want to get down a little bit closer to our element. But so what they say is that this means that these governments are seen with certain criteria, with certain characteristics, such as they are often ruled by authoritarian or totalitarian governments. And everything you described, it's about how this country is being transformed to a totalitarian, authoritarian government. We are supposed to be a democracy, but the truth is that they are eroding democracy. And in effect, they are beginning to act like authoritarian or totalitarian regimes. And that is one of the criteria they often classify our governments. They often have authoritarian, totalitarian regimes. And another part of it is that they severely restrict human rights. And that's the element that to do with how they kill. And we'll come to that in just a while. Some of them sponsor terrorism, and some of them involved in weapons of mass destruction. But that's the international flavor. But clearly, if we link Dominica to that, we see the element of the dictatorship, the authoritarianism coming in. And we clearly see this beginning to happen in Dominica. And you described that nicely, what they're trying to do, how they get in there. And the element to do with restricting human rights is very relevant, and we'll get to that in just a while. But I saw another thing, and I wanted to make a comparison. Donald Trump, when he was there, he had labeled Venezuela a rogue state, And the reason was due to gross human rights violations, economic collapse, rampant excess deaths, anti-American stance, and reported involvement in international drug trafficking. The question is, how is Dominica different from Venezuela? And I would dare say to you, not very different. As a matter of fact, that article, if you check on Wikipedia, it says during the 2017 General Assembly, UN Ambassador Nikki Haley called Venezuela a global threat and a dangerous narco state. Some figures of Venezuelan government, like President Tarek Asisami, the Minister of Defense, Valdemar Lopez, were permanently banned from entering the US territory due to their involvement with human rights abuses and drug cartels. Later in that year, the US government banned all high-ranking Venezuelan government officials from entering the US territory. And it says at the time, currently due to the 2019 Venezuelan presidential crisis, Nicolas Maduro government, which controls Venezuela de facto, is not recognized as legitimate by the United States or any other state in the Western Hemisphere, with the exception of, guess whom? Cuba, Dominica, Nicaragua, St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname. Okay, so I mean, I will not dare put some of our sister countries in that category, but clearly a country like Dominica, you see birds of a feather flock together. But I wanted to use the Venezuelan characterization a little bit and expand on that. So we see one of the things is the gross human rights violation. The truth is, if you look at it from that point of view, and those of us, you may be aware that there's the international, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations that was signed in 1948, where there are 30 basic rights that all human beings are supposed to enjoy. Now, let's not remember, a rogue government often engage in human rights abuses. And this is the track for which we can see how it kills. So I will not go through all 30 of them because it takes us so much time here. But let me just go for a few. And by going for the few, you will see examples of how we have been killed by this dictatorship, by this rogue government, and how they're developing into exactly what you were talking about, Masna. So number 7, for instance, is equal before the law. So it should be that all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation and against any incitement to such discrimination. Now we can begin to see in Dominica this right being eroded. We could begin to see, I'll give you a recent example. I remember somebody recently sent some stuff around about how there was an accident involving the son of the prime minister. Now I'm saying it as I heard it, and that the prime minister's son was driving a government vehicle, which he's not supposed to drive. He has broken the law, the rules of it. And then when the crash happened, from what is reported on the internet on the sites, various sites that we're on, that the policemen got involved, rushed down to the site, took off the GA number, and did some transfers from one vehicle to the other, right? Now, clearly, what we have, therefore, is a police service that's protecting evil and they're protecting wrong. And clearly that is not equality for all our people. But this is the kind of direction that we are going. This is where we are. That's just an example, but we can find other examples. Of course, equality before the law, clearly when those belonging to the administration, to the unjust regime, when they behave in certain ways, the law doesn't apply to them. Somebody else behaves in that way, then the law is brought down on them. The law is selectively utilized against people, and it's utilized to victimize others. And you see, so clearly you see where our country going. When you begin to use the law like that, guess what? People feel that their human rights abuses are being violated. People beginning to see that they better fend for themselves and look for themselves. And when they begin to take the law into their own hands, when they begin to look for themselves and fend for themselves, you see how destruction can come out of this? Innocent people can get hurt, innocent people can be killed. When people begin to, and this is what we have to pray against, because what we have is a regime that beginning to act in such a way to undermine some of our human rights, including that one. Okay? Right to be treated fair by the court. Right? Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights against him by the Constitution or by law. What did we see? What have we seen in our system? When after you might know the details better than me, but of late, when a matter went to the OCS court and then it was returned to Dominica, and then I think the director of public prosecution made some sort of determination that just didn't make sense. In other words, everyone is not treated fairly by our legal system, by our court system, by our legal system, right? And we are going down a very slippery road, a very slippery path. We have heard comments or allegations or accusations about how those who have been appointed in our court system, who seem to be beholden to the current administration, how they try to frustrate the progress of justice, either by delaying how quickly things go to the court and through other mechanisms. We are denying people's right to be treated fairly by the court, right? So you see where we are going as a nation. Number 9 says, no unfair determinant. No one shall be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. What happened recently in Newtown? I don't know all the details, but it looks like the policemen came down to Newtown recently with some guns, hopefully properly to enforce the regulations concerning COVID. But for a minor thing like that, imagine having guns and coming down on this. When a few good citizens inquired, what did, these guys seem to have been, from the reports that I heard, they seem to have been looking for an opportunity to strike these guys. They were just simply asking some questions from the report I heard, from the reporter who said that. And a couple of them end up being arrested and brought down to the police station. Guess what that was? Unfair detainment, right? It very much in Parliament. Last time in Parliament, when there was this matter and the opposition guys were in there, and the police decided to lock down the gates and locked in the parliamentarians in there. God knows what could have happened to them. This is where our country is going down, unfair detainment. There have been parliamentarians who have been arrested arbitrarily in our country. Our human rights are being violated. Definitely our political rights are being violated, and it could lead to death. Because people one day will wake up and say, you are unrighteous, you are violating my rights. What am I to do? If I turn to the courts, your courts are unjust. So what am I to do? They are leading the country down a slippery slope, a dangerous slope. They are leading the country down a path that we will become, if we use another term, a failed state. This is where we are headed. If we the people don't do what Psalms 42 say, begin to cry out and say, God, deliver us from these guys, and begin to act in ways that say, you know something, we won't have it anymore. With God on our side, we are demanding, we are pushing for, we are fighting for, we are working together to get deliverance so that our human rights are not violated, that our country don't get to a state that none of us would like to see. This is what we're talking about. Let me skip down to number 13, right? Number 13, freedom of movement and residence. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country and so on. I could tell you the more on that, but let's leave that one for a moment. Number 17 talks about the right to own things. All right. Now, let me spend a little time on that. The right to own things. Everyone has the right to own property. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of their property. Now, let's begin to unpack this. You might say, but how does that apply to us in Dominica? Do Dominicans know what's going on in Wesley concerning the purchase of lands, the compulsory purchase of lands? Now, we know we do have laws concerning compulsory purchase of lands. Those laws can be applied. And if they apply justly, there is nothing, that we can work with that. But do we understand what's going on in Wesley? We understand that the government is moving to purchase lands for a project that's not properly costed, a project that's not properly studied, that the people have not been properly apprised on. In other words, they may have moved prematurely on that point, which means you do not have necessarily the right to do what you're doing. So you are depriving people of their land unjustly. But even if you have done some of those studies, do we know what's going on there? The people have been fooled. Those who support the government have been paid. Those who do not support the government, they have been given a runaround, and they're getting a lot of trouble to get their money. They have subverted the people. They have divided and ruled the people in order to extract their lands from them, and without negotiation, wanting to give them for their lands whatever they choose to give them without proper process and negotiation and costing. You from saying our rights have been violated. Now, what happens when this farmer realizes his rights have been violated? What happens when this person realizes that one set of people are treated unfairly or treated differently from the other set? You take lands from all folks, but you're treating some differently from the others. You are dividing the people. You're dividing and you're ruling. You are behaving unrighteously. You are violating the right of persons not to be deprived of their property arbitrarily. And if we were to extend that without due process. This is what we're talking about. And you'll be affecting people's living, number one, right? The compensation that's due to them that's not coming to them, you affect their lives. And at the bottom of it again, when people begin to reflect on all of these things and they realize their rights have been abused and violated, what do? We are going down a slippery slope. We have to stop. We have to turn. We, the people, have to come together, seek God's face and come together and turn. Freedom, the number 19, freedom of opinion and expression. Everyone has a right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontier. So you see how in Dominica was, again, we can extrapolate that to our own situation. We see how information, for instance, at the state radio station is denied those who oppose the government's view unjustly. We see that happening. We see how people are afraid to speak. Because if you have an opinion and you speak, you are victimized. If you have an opinion and you speak, you find yourself in an uncomfortable position so that it makes many people afraid to speak. And therefore, when they behave that way, and they have several tools with it, but certainly they use the economic tool, the victimization and all of that, they use that. When they do that, it's basically beginning to take away people's freedom of opinion. And of course, we still have radio stations and those of us who are freely speaking on certain media. But don't be surprised if a day comes when they will try to take that away too. It's just a matter of time, except if we decide, that they will never come. Right? And I remember there was a discussion some time ago, just around the time of the coronavirus. when they had even openly begun to throw across the idea that they should, if it wasn't shut down, but they should censor the radio stations that were saying things that they thought shouldn't be said, but it was really political in their mind. So, but it shows you where they ultimately want to go if we give them a chance. They have already gone too far in many areas. If we continue to give them a chance, they will keep going. So, because that's what an authoritarian regime does. They control the airways, they control the information. There is no freedom of opinion. There's no freedom of expression. When you say something contrary to the government, they will punish you. And they're doing that part and effectively shutting people up. Our rights have been eroded by the behavior of this government. I mean, many people are afraid to speak. I mean, I will tell you, I'm saying that with all due respect, with all due respects. I mean, we have persons who are who should know God, and some of us are even afraid to speak. Why are we afraid to speak? Because we sometimes claim that it will be seen as political. But no, the truth is that we are afraid to speak because we don't want to be denied of a scholarship for our children or promotion on the job. And even those of us who should be godly and who call on God, even some of us begin to be quiet. We don't have freedom to express ourselves. This is where we are going as a nation. Now, the big one, 21, right? Number 21, the right to democracy. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right of equal access to public service in this country. I realize I'm taking plenty of time, but I better wind down soon. But that is the big one. We all know, I won't even spend too much time on that because we know that's the biggest one for us. Our rights have been eroded. Our government was not freely chosen. Our government right now, I will not apologize for saying that, except if somebody again, our government, the current government we have they are not legitimate. And that is, we have to go to the table and talk about that. And that's what NJAM wants to do. We have to come and have a chat because they know it. Let's have a chat before our country goes down a route that it shouldn't be going. Let's come and let's negotiate. Let's have a chat because you are not legitimate. I mean, talking to the government here. You stole the elections. And I was looking at the statistics. I first heard Lennox saying it, but of course it makes sense. But I went back to check the figures and I was looking at tourist arrival figures because we were all saying how the elections were stolen. And I maintain if the last elections, if it wasn't for the importation of votes and all the other activities that they engaged in, fraudulent activity, they would have lost the government. And you could check the figures. I think the government got about 18,000, 19,000, 20,000 votes for the most. I don't remember the exact figures. Europe got about 14,000 votes or so, difference of about 6,000 or so. But if you go back and check the statistics on tourist arrivals for that year, you will see an unusual bump in tourist arrivals that can only be justified by the influx of people at that time. So it was very clear to me, if it wasn't for importation of votes, if it wasn't for other direct means of cheating, and we know the story of electoral reform, the lack of ID card, the impersonation at the polls, persons, some 200 guys going around voting over and over again, and all of that kind of stuff. If it wasn't for that, then we will not have this government. So our democracy have been undermined, not only through the electoral process, but all the institutions of state have been undermined. All this, the check and balance institutions, the police to start with, the electoral commission, the office of the president, everything have been subverted. The very things that would help democracy work better, they have been infiltrated. I think you used that word, Marcelline, right? They have been infiltrated by the administration, and that is where we are. We are at the brink of losing democracy. We are almost an authoritarian regime. They have stolen the elections, and they will want to keep stealing it. As a matter of fact, when they have tried to put electoral reforms, they have tried to do it to justify wrongdoing, just like they did with the law, the procurement law. They tried to put a legislation that justify wrongdoing. Right? So this is where we are. Our right to democracy, our human right, one of the 30 human rights under the UN Charter, is being eroded, has already been eroded. but we have to restore it as a people. This is about doing what it takes. We want to call them to the table, let's negotiate, because they're not legitimate. They have to do that. That has to be a starting point. Let's talk about how we can do our country better, but that has to also start with electoral reform. We'll get back to that maybe a little later, but I want to say that. Now, let me just touch on one more, because I know I've been speaking a lot, so let me just touch on one more. The right to work. Now, how is that right being eroded in Dominica? How is the right to work being eroded in Dominica? Let me read a little more under there. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Everyone votes. Any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work. Everyone has the right to form and to join unions for the protection of his interests. Okay, generally, that is generally the description here. And not that we are off on every element, but clearly we haven't had a government that have paid attention or sufficient attention to prosperity and to growing the economy. They have paid attention to their own prosperity. They have paid attention to their own corruption. They have moved forward, but our people haven't, our country haven't. In effect, because of their corruption and their corrupt behavior, they're denying us, they're denying the people the right to work. That is what they're doing. And then if you think of some direct instances, right, of how they discriminate in terms of the doling out of jobs, the doling out of contracts, you are directly affecting my right to work. If a public contract is put out, a public tender is put out, it should be fair and square. If you're going to hire somebody, or if government wanted to purchase items from the private sector, it should be fair and square. If you do not do it fair and square, you may just be denying some of us the right to earn and the right to work. If you bring in truck operators and you bring in only your people, and you are denying the rest of us the right to work. If you're hiring only contractors to support the government and they have to give back a percentage of that contract to the government, or not to the government, to the political party, then you're denying the bulk of us, the rest of us who do not support the government, the right to work. So on these two levels, the direct denying of the non-supporters of the right to work, and on the overall level, because of their focus on corruption, their focus on maintaining power, then they're not focusing on creating a prosperous economy, which in effect they deny us the right to work. So the truth is our human rights have been violated. And this is leading us down a slippery slope. People are hungry. People are desperate. And it has gotten worse. Of course, we know it has gotten worse with Maria. Of course, we know it has gotten worse with COVID. We know that. But the truth is, it was already bad then. And if it wasn't for the bad economic management, if it wasn't for the favoritism, it wasn't for the discrimination and the economic warfare against opponents, then we would not have been in that bad a situation. Just look at how St. Kitts is doing. Just look at some of our other countries. I have been fortunate to be going through some of the work, some of the things some of our sister countries are doing, like in Grenada and so on. These countries did a lot better than us prior to COVID, and are able to cope a lot better than us. This government is denying us the right to survival. So yes, a rogue government, as you defined it, Marcelline, and as Venezuela was described. And I just dealt with one element for Venezuela. This is the human rights. There are other elements like narco trafficking and let me tell you, maybe we may get there, but there are these other elements of the rogueness of our government, right? That I have not even touched yet. But let me stop there because I think I have said quite a bit for now.
Yes, Marcelline.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Vital. That was quite a lot to chew on. And when we look back at all the points you have raised, they all are critical to leading to what led Dominica to being under a rogue and criminal regime. it's one thing to, if we have to compile everything, the main thing we have to look at, the main institution we have to, or we need to look at right now, and that could have avoided the mess that is in Dominica right now, is the Electoral Commission's office. Because when I look at it, when we look at it, or from what it seems like now, Dominica presently is under siege, where the law-abiding citizens are the hostages by a criminal rogue regime. And they have not only circumvented the laws and institutions that are supposed to lead the country in the right direction and to hold them accountable. The electoral office, as I said, the electoral office in Dominica is supposed to function as an independent office. And that office and the officers should be held personally accountable. They should be held accountable to the Dominican people. They should not be part and parcel in taking Dominicans back to slavery. Because from what I can see, the electoral office in Dominica is the institution that has taken Dominicans back to slavery under Chinese masters. And by a black master with a whip on Dominicans' back, with a whip on their democracy, with a whip on their livelihood, on their well-being, on their children. This could only happen because of the electoral office, the Electoral Commission. And as I said, we should hold them accountable. They are responsible for the police brutality, all the police brutality in Dominica, the human rights violations in Dominica, the killing of the future, killing the future of the Dominican children, killing the dignity of our women and children by violating the oath that they have taken to ensure that Dominica has free and fair elections. They have violated that oath. And that is why we cannot have a true democratic process in securing free and fair elections in Dominica. And I am asking the question this afternoon. Should these people violate the rights of Dominicans, be responsible for Dominica's state of affairs right now? Should business just continue as normal? Should they continue just receiving a salary and going home to sleep comfortable in their beds, when the blood of the nation, what is happening right now, rests on their shoulders? Should these people continue? Should we allow these people to just go home as usual and come back in the office day after day and tighten the noose around the necks of our democracy? I am asking that question. Charu, if you want to
yes,
that question, then I think you should take a shot at it.
I've listened to everything you all said, and I go back to a people, a nation. My nation is settling for less. And we as a nation, we as a people should know what we're worth. We should know what we want to achieve. And with all what Mr. Vital said, and also you, Marcelline, it falls back to the nation, it falls back to the people, it falls back to the opposition. And when I say opposition, I do not mean the opposition party. The people who are standing, who are back home, that sees the wrongs and accept the wrong as a right. Because with all what Mr. Vital said and you, Marcelline, said, this rogue government will put people in position to protect their back. It might just be one person that is in a position that is preventing justice to prevail. And it's we as a people to understand it is wrong. And what are we going to do about it? What are we doing about it? I have been hearing talk and we accept everything. And I say, you know what? It must be an old energy. For my nation, a people of intelligence, a people that should know what is right from wrong, for the past 20 years to accept negativity, poverty, insults, and just continue with a life of no success. So it's all falls back to the people. And I don't know what it is that is avoiding we are people to take the right approach to get change or to demand answers. And with all of what we're saying, Corbett and telling the people the message and getting it to their ear, unless the nation, the people do not understand their true value and what they are worth, we will continue to have a rogue government, not just in Dominica, in the region, and it have a lot to do with us. Are we settling for less? You know, we can come with all the nice, 2021 different ideas. You must see Civic Vibes have been educating the nation for a long while. We have different other talk shows and hosts bringing the reality. And my nation is taking the reality as fake news, like it's not happening. And they take the rumors, the pretty picture, as a reality. And we have to accept that. Unless we do not accept it and our people get wiser and we start to take away the people in position that is preventing justice, preventing democracy, then we are not getting nowhere. It's a hurdle in the way that have to be moved by all means. I'm not saying all means, it don't have to be by fighting, it don't have to be violent, but we have to let the people understand that they are in a position and they are doing wrong. And if they know they are doing wrong and they know there are people at the back of it, there's a force. You understand? Because the people is greater than the people in power. And I cannot understand why we are losing everything. It's just like we're talking small business and why rogue government kills small business. And small business is what employ in free employed to small business employed too. And Dominica is basically everything in Dominica is small business. We don't have no big international business back home to boast about. We just have a few persons that have more access to the financial institution. So they grow a little to a greater level. But I looked at businessmen, persons seeing the wrong, but just because of their name, just because of the title, to keep that prestige, to stay, oh, I'm still Mr. This or I'm still there. They accept the wrong of the rogue government, the wrong, so that their name can be there. Just the name, while the others just lose and perish. And it's a thing Spider sang long ago. The country went down slowly, going down slowly. But I want Mr. Vital to understand. Our country has been down that road a long time. We have been down there already. We're not going to go. The only thing we have to do is like you see you have a book you read in the chapter and we just close and it's dead. That's what is it. That's where we are right now. We have been down that road a long time. And it's us as a people to decide we need answers. We give people a job to do. We put in a government to give us work. Even if this government, and I know this government, I won't be ashamed to say this government, the elections are illegal. The elections were stolen. We know it. We have never seen flights in Dominica like that on election time. And someone going to tell me the election wasn't stolen? Am I going to say that because why? I want to get a job, I want a scholarship? Give kiss for less. When your daughter or your son get a scholarship, what are they going to do? Where are they coming back? To see them in your food. Unless we don't have change, unless we don't demand answers and we let these people understand, we give them a job to do, we don't have to accept what they tell us. Like I will say, scary, and I will call his name because he's in position. He's the Prime Minister, recognized as the Prime Minister of Dominica. Has come on many occasions and decided he's doing stuff that is not legitimate. And not one time have you been stopped. I look at the same truckers talking about Dominica's job. What did they do about it? They just come on the radio and have a little conversation and then it's dead. The Prime Minister came and said he got $64,000 for his own comfort. What did we do about it? We spoke about it one time on the radio, 2 times, and it's done. So where is small business going? Unless we do not demand the people, the power of the people, to push away this rogue government or whatever is the hurdle, we are not getting nowhere because they continue putting things in place to protect their own personal gain while the masses get power and we do not have a middle class. So you'll have a few that have access to financing because our financial institutions are also part of the whole system of rogue government because there are people in position to protect that. So we won't have a middle class. You're an economist. Without a middle class, where are we going? We just have some with access to money rich and poor. Where are we going? The poor cannot move up to the level of the middle class. The middle class cannot move up to the level of the rich. So it's we as a people, my friends. We as a people. We settle in for less.
True. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Very much, Cheryl. Let me just ask you, Cheryl. Can you give the listening and viewing public an idea of your own experience as a Dominican man when you were here, of course, trying to better the business community for small businesses on the ground?
At first, I started with the financial institutions. At first, it was just bad policies for persons who want to be their own entrepreneur, want to create their own jobs, to get finance. Because we come from a 90% of poor nation, poor family. 1. 2, when I realized that this government was into power and I realized that this government aim and agenda was not to create employment for the poor people and create an independence, want you to depend on them. I realized we are in it for trouble. I realized that there's no way another young person that have a brilliant idea will see the avenue, will see the direction to success. You understand? And if you look out for the past 10, 15 years under this regime, can you all tell me any young person that you will see doing something for themselves, creating their own employment or creating employment for others, for a country that you have billions of dollars is coming into pumping in? So me as an individual back home into business, and I'm not just one business, I did many different businesses back home. So I was in every little sector of business back home. And I can tell you, we lost it from since that election came in. And this government came in and there was no direction. And if all the small business want to, that's still afloat, they got to have to hold on to, but it's really bad. So there was never anything put in place to assist small business to grow. So the businesses that were already there were stifled down. So then they had to just, those that really have the businesses that are really productive, because with productive persons, they're not going to settle for less. They're going to try to go to other avenues to see what they can do, But those that just decide, okay, I'm eating a slice of bread with some butter, they will settle for that, If that answer your question.
Sure. Before I go back to Marcelline, as we continue here, someone is saying, Brother Winston, by the name of Thai Francis on Facebook, they're saying that they bought their niece clothing from you when you were in Dominica and had that business. So in terms of that business, was it successful enough for you, or how was business for you on the ground in Dominica?
I'll tell you something here. God give everybody a gift. And I always say you don't have to have a doctorate, you know, to really make use of what God gave you, you know. And I've always had that gift where I'm just business inclined. I can just create stuff, you know. And I remember writing to the Prime Minister, present guy as the Prime Minister when he in, you know. And I told him, well, I spoke to him because managing midnight groupers, you know. And I said to him, there are a lot of young persons. Before I really go back, I don't want to go away from the question you asked. Yeah. But I said to him, you know, there are a lot of young guys coming to me for advice, how to get along, because, you know, we have to juggle it to get finance, you know, because when we come with your projection and you might have $150,000 projection plan, you know, and the bank giving you 70,000 and you don't know where you're getting the other 80,000, you know, you're going to take the 70, you know. So, you know, it's been tough to really ask for people get business rolling, you know. But I remember writing to this guy, speaking to this guy, and wrote, he told me, come to him. I got a musician, I got a craftsman, I got a few persons coming to a meeting, and it's all about just talk. Just talk. So my success in business back home, I would say I would consider myself to be very successful back home when I had business on the previous government. But eventually what happened is that under this regime, when I saw that there was no direction for growth, because I tried to stay in, always going back to the financial institution to pump more resources back into business. But I would have to settle for less. That means I would have to join the crew. Because if I join the crew, maybe I get a $500,000 too and say I'm not paying, I did not have to pay back. If you understand what I'm trying to say. But when you have your own independency, you know your customer working for yourself, you have that kind of drive. So then when I saw the decline, I decided I had the okay to move and do stuff for myself. I said, let me go in another person land and try to see what's there, because I could not settle for that. And without cutting it too long again, if I was back home as the person I am, I don't know what to be, because there's a lot of people home that lose their business, and a lot of people who were against the same regime had to turn back to appreciate that same regime to keep afloat. So it had good times on the previous administration, but it decided it declined, and I had to take a different direction. As that's to me personally as an individual. But other than that, it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, brother. I'll get to some comments in a while, but let me just move back to Marcelline so that we can continue. We're going to take a break after we hear from Marcelline, and I guess Kent will chime in after. We're going to take a little musical break, and then we'll resume the conversation in a bit. So yes, Marcelline, you can go right ahead. You're on the floor now.
Thank you, Loftus. Mr. Vital, do you want to chime in on the zeroed in issue of the electoral reform of the Electoral Commission, where they have actually and literally violated their oath?
Yes, I can. But before that, let me just can I just make a comment on what Sharu said, because
yes,
he's
go
so
right
on point.
Ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Yes, because he's so on point, because he mentioned the challenges to small businesses, and the major challenge seemed to be access to finance. And that is something that has even been worse under the regime, the rogue regime.
That's it.
Because so it's already a difficult challenge anyway, but worse when you've got a regime that want to create dependency, that want to use everything as a political tool. So now access to finance gets even worse. But forgetting the regime for a little minute, just focusing on that thing. The truth is, and he said it right when he said you might need 120. I think that's the figure he used. The bank only offers you 70, and then you might end up taking it. And maybe not succeeding as well as you wanted to, because number one, it wasn't enough in the first place. Right? But let me tell you something else that happens. Besides it not being enough, often what happens was many of our small businesses, they were over leveraged. They were too highly indebted. And by the time they pay the bank and pay the rent and pay this, often there is not a lot. But many of them have some very, very good ideas. And if they could get a different kind of financing, then they would do a lot better. I'm looking now around Dominica, and many of them are not doing too well, but you could see some bright ideas, especially in the agro-processing area. I see so many people trying, especially in this health environment, moringa and certain teas and so on. And I think these people can do even better. And there are many other areas, but what they need is the right kind of financing. A loan is one thing, even a cheap loan is one thing, but when you have to focus on that loan, while you need a first year or two to focus on your product and your market, and you may not necessarily be very profitable in the year or two, but when you get certain things right, like your product and your marketing and your clientele and so on, when you get that right, then profits flow sometimes a little later. But when you are burdened with loans, so but we don't have a government that could understand and think through those issues. And maybe I should say it's not just the Dominica issue, maybe, but it's even worse in Dominica. Because we don't have a government that could think through. First, they may have ulterior motives because they don't want you to prosper. And when you do have good ideas, they will try to, unless they are involved, unless they get a part of it or something, that wouldn't even go forward. What we need is government that can understand and work with. And he you were right to say that most of us are small businesses anyway. But what we want is to take those small businesses, have the appropriate finance and other type of assistance, grow them so that they become medium-sized and maybe regional and maybe international. We have missed that boat. We have missed that opportunity. Also, too, I see many people doing the same sort of things, and you cannot fault people from getting inspiration from others. But we also have to have the systems for understanding if two persons doing this kind of manufacturing, there might be an opportunity for them to work together, to buy together. The Chinese do it very well. They buy together, they store together. Well, I may be wrong, but I believe they do some things very well. But we have not yet caused our businessmen to work together to minimize their costs and ultimately maybe to form one company. But these are the kinds of things that a real government will do. But a government who's a rogue government will not want to do that because prosperity is in the hands of the people. Prosperity, small businessmen prospering and doing good is not good for them. Because when businessmen are doing good and prospering and people are prospering, then we are free. We do not take nonsense. You follow? And that is not in their interest. If anything, they want to be the only businessmen and not the rest of us. But these are the kind of things a government ought to be doing. But guess what? We cannot just sit and wait until, well, from my point of view, I am not just going to sit and wait for that to happen. We hope the trick is electoral reform and make sure we get a new government. So we'll go to that in just a while. But in the meantime, I would say to us as Dominican people that there's more we can do. Those of us in the diaspora. And that is part of what NJAM is going to do as well. We understand the need for economic empowerment. We understand the need to act, to organize businessmen. Nothing I'm saying, I'm not suggesting this is going to be easy because we're not in government. We ourselves don't have all the time as we would like to. But some of us are going to make an extraordinary effort with the help of the diaspora and whoever can help to begin to do what this government should be doing, but they do not do. What they should be doing, but they don't want to do, and they will not do because it will empower the people and they will lose their hold. Because anybody who is empowered and realize what's going on, they cannot do these kinds of policies because they'll be voted out. So we as a people have to understand that and begin to say, you know something, we're going to help ourselves. It's going to take extraordinary effort. And people like you, Sharu, I want your help. And those in the diaspora, I want your help.
You got my help anytime, bro. Anytime.
Right. So we're gonna begin to turn it around. But in the meantime, the quickest way to save our nation is through our God-given, our human rights, our democratic rights, which has been undermined. And that's the issue of electoral reform. So a lot of where we are as a people in terms of electoral reform is because the check and balance institution that should have guarded the conduct of our electoral process and make the appropriate adjustments for adjusting it or getting people to realize that it needs to be adjusted is the Electoral Commission. But unfortunately, our Electoral Commission and those of you who do not understand how our Electoral Commission should work, it should be 2 persons elected from the opposition party, 2 persons elected from government, and a fifth person who should be a neutral person appointed, I think, by the president. But what has happened is that the president himself have not been neutral. We all know that. That's no secret. The president is not a president that's independent. The president is a Labour Party member, so to speak, or whatever. He works with the government, aligned with the government. And we'll have a discussion with him because we want to encourage him to secure the future of our nation. And we want to organize a discussion with him pretty soon, as well as the Prime Minister and others. But we want to encourage him to do the right thing and to be a neutral president, not one that is working in favor of the Labour Party. So what you have ended up with is 3 against 2. So you have 2 on the government side, 1 more on the government side through the president. The chairman is appointed by the president, but undoubtedly is often someone who is for the government, with the government, trying to. And because we have had another fair electoral commission, right? Because we haven't had a fair chairman that comes down and say this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, or even to sensitize the people enough so people can realize what's going on, then we have not had simple things done which could have been done, such as cleaning the electoral list. These are simple things that could have been done a long time. Loftus, you know it better than me. Simple things that could have been done long time have not been done. Clean the list. Other responsibilities that the electoral office themselves have, political parties have those responsibilities too, but we know our realities. But the electoral commission, the electoral system also gives the authority to electoral commission / the director, I don't know the technical term, but they have the authority to also clean the list. All right? So clearly something is wrong. And a lot of it seemed to be the unfairness within the electoral commission. Now, we could say, because the truth is, it is designed to be fair in the sense of 2-1, but because the office of the president has been subverted, it's no longer fair, unfortunately. And this is where we have come to. So that is why, again, as a people, what we have to say, we see the injustice. We see the biasness of the electoral commission. Again, as NJAM, we're going to speak to them. We're going to say, look, let's do this well. It can be done. Other countries have done it. It can be done. Don't allow the government desires to influence you. We're expecting, for instance, or the government had commissioned the study by Byron. Now, from what we understand, I wasn't at some of those meetings, but there was a promise that when he has done some of the work, he would present it to the public. There would be consultations, so to speak. And we're not seeing those consultations. And we get the feel that they are going to present those legislation, electoral reform legislation, to Parliament without going through public consultations. So they're trying to have a secretive, clandestine kind of presentation. So it seems, as a people, we have to guard against that. We have to look against that. Because what they seem to want to do is put in electoral reforms that suits them. You see, remember what the scripture said at the beginning? You do evil by the laws you enact. This government is seeking to enact laws to encourage more evil and more injustice. This time around, we must not let anything go through that's not fair, that's not adequate, and that is meant to favor the government. We have to guard against that. So as a people, we have to insist. So as an NJAM, we're going to try to lead all our people, be it unions, political parties. We're going to try to encourage everyone to act jointly to ensure that the electoral reform is done properly, not any sham legislation. We have to ensure, we have to stand as a people. It's only by standing we are going to be able to counter what this government wants to do. And that is what we will continue to encourage our people.
I have a question, Mr. Vital. Yeah. In light of the fact that everyone seems to be waiting on this report of Justice Byron, I want to ask, are these institutions or these, those civic groups, or, the persons who are waiting on that report, are they just waiting? And don't you think that there should be some form of discussion on the ground where people go to the various communities, the different civic groups, mobilize, go to the various committees, have a discussion with the people on the ground, the people who can't be reached by the radio stations, the people who need to hear what in that report should be rejected and what should be accepted. Because by now, as a people, we ought to know what we are looking for in our reform.
Right.
This Justice Byron does not have to come out where he come from. Take our $500,000 to tell Dominicans what they need, what they should accept in their electoral reform, because we have a constitution and we have laws that govern our elections in Dominica, some of which I feel are wholesome and good enough to ensure we have free and fair elections. Because prior to this bunch of rogues who are in government for the past, call it 20-something years, those very same laws on the books, they were functioning. We had never seen anything like that, where a government would just come in, a group of people just came in, and they literally bribed their way. They literally bought their way. They literally took the state's resources to purchase an election, to purchase the people, to purchase even the representatives. Back in the day, it used to be the people, we had noblemen running for offices. They were not offered a dime to run for the office, because you do not have to offer a stipend or $500,000 or purchased for you to want to play your civic duty in whatever shape or form you wanted to expend your civic duty. It's only with this regime we have seen this madness. And I guess the persons who wrote the laws, they did not realize that the womb, Dominica's womb, could birth such a benighted, this disdainful human being in the realm of our politics.
Yes.
So I am asking, shouldn't the groups on the ground, all opposing voices, shouldn't the people be well apprised by now and just ready to go, that when Mr. Byron comes with his $450 paid BS to the Dominican people, then the Dominican people are ready to say, hell no, we do not want that. We are not accepting that. This is what we want, and this is what we will accept. Until then, take your piece of crap and shove it. But this is not going through our parliament.
Right. Well, you're quite right about that. We shouldn't just wait. But I will tell you, there's a press release I think Loftus may read before we're out here from NJAM. But what you're saying is exactly what we're going to do. It's not too late. First, I have to commend all of the groups who have done their work in the past, whether it was CCM, the political parties. There have been a lot of work, not just CCM and the political parties, but you have had the business forum, the unions, faith-based organization, business forum. They had formed this group that they had made recommendations on what appropriate reforms would look like. And that same set of recommendation was used when I think it was the OAS or a commission was studied, was commissioned. They used that as well in terms of electoral recommendations to be made. So a lot of our people have done some good work. What we have had though is a rogue government that just consistently rejected that work and rejected those pleas. So I do not want to, I wouldn't want to make it sound as if our NGOs have been sitting back, but rather people have been, the government have been ignoring. So what it needs now is for us to take it to the next level. They have been ignoring and they have been threatening with the police and so on. But I have to commend all of the NGOs who did release all of this work. They have been good, a lot of good work done. Question is, what do we do from this point on? Should we just continue to wait on Sir Byron? And that's what NJAM is saying. No, we will not just wait. Yes, what you're saying, maybe we should have started it a while, but sometimes after election and with Omicron, not Omicron, but with the COVID and so on, we have not been able to, and I say we, I'm talking about all the patriots who have been at the forefront of that fight. We may not have been able to do all we wanted to do, but I think the opportunity is now that we just sit down and wait. And NJAM is saying what we're going to do. We know what to do. When I say we, not NJAM, we the people of Dominica. We have made the recommendations before. Other recommendations have been made. And there are good laws in sister countries, Barbados, Jamaica, and so on, that doesn't take much translation into what ideal electoral reform should look like. So what we're going to do is begin to put this together. And we need the help from the diaspora to do all of this, and everybody in Dominica. We're going to begin to put this together. And exactly what you're saying is that's what we want to do. We're going to begin to put it together and say, this is ideal. This is what these other countries have. This is what Dominica can look like in terms of good legislation. We are going to put this before the people, and we're going to begin to discuss it the same way you're talking about, with the help of all the organizations, CC, we'll be trying to get our people together, trade unions, political parties. This exactly what you're saying is what NJAM wants to do. So it's a real good suggestion, and I have to say that it's are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Right. So we are getting there, and we're going to get there. But we cannot just sit down and wait. We're going to put something. Now, when if he comes with something, then we will obviously look at it as well and see whether what he has had, in light of all the good information we have had, we have made before, all the recommendations have been made by OAS and by our own private sector NGOs. I forgot the business forum. There's a group of persons, private people, faith-based organization, trade unions that came together last year or year before last. No, sorry, just before the election, not last year, right? To make this recommendation electoral reform. That body of work is there. So we will refer to that body of work and other good information that all the political parties and NGOs have contributed to. We will compare it. So if it comes out, we will have to also look at it in light of those information, especially if our own model legislation is not ready yet. But we'll be moving quickly, with the help of the diaspora financing, moving quickly to do those things and have those discussions with the people. So that is exactly what we want to do. But I have to say, you're making a point, and I have to also say that, yes, indeed, you're right. We have had legislation, or the same legislation in the books, but here's the difference. It's the same legislation. It had the loopholes. It had the seeming deficiencies. Let me explain what I mean by the seeming deficiencies. There is the elections law, the House of Assembly Act, that talks about, I think, either this one or the other one. There are two pieces of legislation that talk to elections. And on the one piece, it says that you've got to be in the country for 5 years to be eligible. And on the other piece, it says if your name is the electoral list, then you can vote. So this, no, it's clear, but each one is clear. But together, there's a bit of doubt as to which should be the superior application. Is it that once your name is on the list, you could vote, or do we go back to the other one that says for 5 years, if you're out, you can't? But what these guys have done, now we have always had those things, but the previous governments, the previous administrations, they were not rogue administrations. They were honorable men. They understood the spirit of the law. Mm-hmm. And because they understood the spirit of the law, they didn't exploit, if you want to call them loopholes, or if you want to call them inconsistencies, or, but these guys have exploited those things in addition to directly, bold-facedly contravening the law, right? So that's the difference. The law was always there and had some shortcomings, so to speak. So like another example, we didn't use voter IDs cards before, but the previous regimes never sought to exploit that. There was never any overwhelming attempt for voter impersonation to the extent that it made that kind of difference, if you understand what I'm saying. It's all about rogueness that makes the difference. So because of that, now that we have seen that, what we've got to do is correct those things. Fix, have the voter ID, correct the legislation. Again, and another example. Remember, electoral reform is not just about the actual list and ID. It's also about campaign finance reform and so on. In the past, we did not have regimes that depended upon blood money or drug money or those kinds of things. So you didn't have that sort of influence, of nefarious influence of bad money in our elections. And therefore, even if there was not campaign finance reform, even if it was needed then, but because of the fact that you had persons presiding in government or political parties at the time that didn't seek to misuse money to influence elections, because we had more honorable men and women in the arena before, we didn't have that problem. But now that we realize there's a whole sort of rogue persons wanting to continue the injustice in our country, then we have to correct the law. We have to correct it to the extent that there is no more escape. There's no more reason, legally at least, for them to be able to subvert our democracy. We've got to fix that. So although the law always there for all of us, and that's what they will argue, the difference is now that we have seen what a rogue government or a rogue administration can do to subvert our democracy, we've got to fix it. So in the future, if we were to get another rogue administration, they will not be able to go that route again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you very much, Brother Kent. Let me just, before we take a break, we must take a break now because we have been at it for a little while, but before we do, let me just go to Brother Jeff to see if you have anything you want to chime in on, and then we're going to take a break, take some comments, and then we can resume the conversation in just a bit. Brother Jeff, anything you want to add?
Yes, we have to remember the word road. It's going to be tough. And I pray to that great God that he prays blessings and everything, because we need a team effort. And as I've said previously, the people, our nation, they are settling for less. And they are not showing, they should understand the true value that they are the one that can make change for a change, not just change, but change for a better life, And Mr. Vital, what he's saying makes sense. We need that kind of force, we need that kind of, direction. But unless we have the people, the nation, have to understand what we're saying, to get involved, they are the one that can cause change. It's just like what Marcelline is saying. Marcelline is saying about, this electoral guy. What I'm saying is that we, the people, accept this one man to get almost $500,000 when we have people in our homes hungry. And the people that are hungry accepted that they cannot stand for themselves to decide. You're giving one man $500,000, $500,000. I need $10,000. So how are we going to get it when our people settle for less? Their mind, I don't know if they're drained. I don't know if it's an old energy. But our people were not sleeping like that before. And without staying too long, it's true. I try to tell Loftus and Marcy that it's true. It's a generation, and it's a generation that when a child was 1 year, they know that scary rogue regime. He's 20 now. The one that was 10 now is 30. They might know that kind of politics. And the older generation like us and the others are older than us that knew that we had to work to achieve, and we were not depending on directly a prime minister. There were NGOs to assist. There were places you go to for assistance. We didn't have to go out to see Mary Eugenia Charles. We didn't have to see Patrick John or any of the others. We went to places if you needed help. But these people only know one man. And this one man plays like he's a god. And they are chronic to that. Yes, your challenges will be tough, sir. Yes, Marcelline, you talk about Sir Byron, it's going to be tough. They're accepting it. There should never even be a Sir Byron in that electoral issue. We should demand that there is no Byron. We should demand that we want voters ID card. We should take on the streets and we should stand as a people. And we have to have a cost. We should demand change. We should demand answers. You want to go Wesley and take land. We want to know why you want our land in Wesley. The Wesley people take it. They accept it and then they just call one time on Matt. Yes, there is victimization. 1-2 policemen with big rifles coming. The policemen have to understand they have families. And if they knew it was a people, not just a person, a nation together, an opposition together. The same policeman with one rifle that believe he's the law will have to humble. But it's because of we so polite and so quiet and so dormant, they can take advantage of our kindness. So what this regime is doing is taking our kindness for weakness. Yes. And then unless we do not have that direction and we decide we want change, we want the people to come together, bro, it's gonna be tough for you. It's gonna be tough for Loftus, Marcy, and all of us. And it's not about just this government, you know. We have to come together as a people right now and demand any government in power that do not do the work of the people will be kicked out at any means necessary. And all them nice talk and all them engineering talk and all them stuff there, I really, to be honest with you, my partner, you, my brother, I love you as a brethren. I don't mean to be rude. I know you mean well. I spoke to you in Freedom Party stuff. I know you have a genuine heart for Dominica. You understand? But our nation is accepting wrong for right. I don't know what it is. I will tell you something here. It's a team of people that like to add up to negativity. Look at Dominica. A man will be preaching the word of God with a Bible on the roadside and everybody passing through and say he's a madman. You're preaching the word of God, you know, you have a Bible. One guy shot another, you will see by the court full of people waving him and saying, hi, how you doing? Everything okay? You okay in jail? That's what we like. We like negativity. We grabbed. And my nation, and I said it to you all already, if I come on the radio now as a Dominican and I say, Rosa River is running fresh water, Dominicans say, what nonsense you talking? A foreigner come and say, it is running gold, melted gold in Dominica. All Dominicans will take a bucket and one collect it thinking it's gold. The same water I tell them about. So unless we as a people will come together and demand, listen, we give you a job, you having castles, you having all of this, and we don't have bread to eat. I look at a particular person who was against a regime, that same regime, joined the regime, and now his structure was left to right. Right now it's balanced, and many other stuff, and the people accept it. The same man that was saying, we need change, we need honesty. And I can call himself, he's a speaker. And that speaker turned, and that same speaker that was against a regime is right now the same man that in that same regime against truth to power because of his personal gain, and so are many others. So where we going, bro? Young businessmen, fellas with business holding on to that regime because they need to feel they have something to hold on to. And I will tell you all, the leader of that rogue regime is a brilliant leader when it comes for his psychology. He knows how to manipulate. And the results. And we have to take it for what it is, my brother. Anyway, I love Holly. I really think, sorry if I get too emotional, but, you know, Dominica is too much of a beautiful, so just a minute, Loftus. Dominica is too much of a beautiful place where I made mistakes. And we are so blessed a country for us to lose it. You know, I don't have to care about what goes on in Dominica by thinking about you. When you look at the picture of Dominica in the state and look at that greenery, that the vegetation, that fresh water, that birds, the beauty we have back home. And we are selling ourselves less for foreigners and one man in position for his personal gain. They want what we have. We are not free up here. We are not free in the States. We are free back home. We cannot lose that freedom. And for the Ben, Dennis, like Byron, all the others, and them people, we need to let them people understand. Right is right. And I will tell you one thing with that, so Dennis Byron. If Dennis Byron had any integrity, he would not even accept to work for this regime.
Yes.
If he had any integrity, that's why he did not believe in the results he's getting. If for his name, sir, I hear the opposition leader saying, and some people saying about his name is high recruit, and I respect that. But my brother, if I'm a word of preaching the word of God, and I know I'm righteous, my brother, and I see a statue that says the devil's sign, and I have it on the next side of me, what am I? Anyway, you all will spoke forth. Have a blessed one. Sorry for my
There's no
I
reason to say sorry, Sharon.
Okay, yeah, blessings.
A lot of us in Dominica have that kind of passion as well. And so we thank you for your very passionate contribution this afternoon. Alongside Brother Ken Vital, you guys are doing a wonderful job as our guest here on Civic Vibes this afternoon. Let's take a little musical break now. We're gonna come back with some comments in just a bit, but just a pause to just, kind of pull everything together musically. We'll be back in just a bit. Let's do this. We're gonna do this one from Peter Tosh. He entitled this one, The Day the Dollar Died.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter Tosh is very low.
Yes, indeed. The day the dollar died, indeed. Let's take now a few comments from the Facebook live feed before we go back to Marcelline as we continue on that conversation here we're having. Kent, let me just alert you a number of comments, a number of questions re NJAM and NJAM objectives or NJAM missions. So yes, I'll be reading that press release from NJAM sometimes later, but you will have the bulk of the talk to respond to some of the questions that are posed here for and on behalf of NJAM. All right, Dominica Freedom, one calls Dominica Freedom, is writing here, a nation without a vision will perish. And the only vision that the Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit have is for himself and not for country. Pat Cobbett, our brother in Portsmouth, he's writing here, Jeff, you really brought down the roof. So brother Winston, Pat Cobbett is basically agreeing with you with your passionately earlier. Didi Esther is writing here. Jefferson Winston, individuals such as Joseph Isaac are a bunch of opportunists. Everyone is looking for their own selfish interests and is moving in whatever direction the political wind blows. Let me see if I could sneak in a couple comments here. James Cam is also commenting here. Thank you, Jeff, my bro. We need your passion, bro. No apologies. Let it out proper. Elizabeth Douglas is also writing here. Remember Jim Jones. Follow the leader. Omar Monel as well is saying, speaking from the heart. I want to thank, they're also commending you, Brother Winston, for speaking out from the heart. Marvella Defoe is also writing here, good talk, my brother. Very sad to see how our country come. Let me see if I could take some more comments here. Brian Joseph is saying, real talk. Brother Ivinia Joseph as well is saying, what about Sam Raphael and the Calypsonian traitors I'm seeing here? So a number of persons, they are there and they are enjoying every bit of the conversation thus far. Let me move back now to Marcelline so that as we, continue to concretize the rest of the discussion moving forward with our very passionate and erudite guest here in the name of Mr. Jefferson Winston and economist Kent Vital. Yes, Marcelline.
Thank you, Loftus. But Lofty, you forgot to ask for the donations to Civic Vibes, Lofty.
Well, you can go right ahead, Marcelline.
But it's your link. You forgot to promote the help me, Lofty. You know better than I do.
I will do that before we wind up for sure. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay, good.
You're just genuine, Lofty, man.
I know. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. And this was very passionate. And I looked at the comments and someone said there should be more Jeffs. There should be more Jeffs. There should be more people like you, to speak up on those issues. Because what I see happening is like we are losing our beautiful country. We are losing our rights as Dominicans. We are losing that first class citizenry. We are quickly becoming a second class. And yes, we are in foreign lands, but we have no freedom here. The only place we have true freedom, as you said, is in Dominica. And when our indigenous businesses and our indigenous people go extinct, then what is there? When our lands are being sold out to foreigners, to Chinese who buy the best spots, the land by the waters, they can eviscerate a whole community. They can demarcate a whole community to allocate those lands for Chinese and for their CBI criminals, their CBI friends, and the indigenous people are herded like sheep and put in apartment buildings in places that's going to become eyesore, that's going to become an eyesore later down, because those places are not going to be maintained. Because if you put people in apartment houses and they have no monies, they have no way of income to take care of themselves in the first place, how are they going to maintain those properties? Now you take those properties, you tell them it is theirs, but they have no titles. They have no titles. And as soon as someone, the very someone you said, okay, I'm giving you a house, and then that very someone has exchanged their votes, because it's called our voting system now has become trade and barter and trade. So you trade your votes for a house. Then as soon as something happens to you, because remember there's no health care. So when you get sick in those very same houses, your condition and debilitates, and then you die. That very house that you gave your vote for, you gave them your vote for, that they told you it's yours, they come back and take it, even before your blood goes cold in your body, even before rigor mortis sets in your body. They come back and they take it away from your family. So your family has nothing, but you have already been fooled and given them your vote. I see in the Concord area where I'm from, they have a housing scheme across the river on the Kalinago side. And you know how many people died from those apartment houses? Maybe about four people in that little area. Last year, 2 years ago. So people have to understand that those houses, they are not hospitals. They are not a well-equipped hospitals. So even if the government gives you a house, but you have a heart condition, you have you have underlying conditions, you have a chronic condition, you do not have a hospital, a fully functioning hospital that is equipped to take care of you to go to, what is going to happen? You're going to drop down and die in the little 2x4 you gave them for your vote, when you should have been voting on those real issues. So that is what a rogue government does. It takes the country's monies and it buys itself into office to be like slave masters on the backs of the people, and the people have nowhere out. Look at the small businesses in Dominica. Look at the list of, the many businesses that have gone out, that they have killed, either because there's no fluidity, the economy is lethargic, there's no monies, there's no turnover in Dominica, within the economy, and as a result, the people do not have buying power. So they cannot, so there's no business turnover, there's nothing, no way that those businesses can generate any form of, of profits. They can barely stay afloat. We have bigger companies. Take, for example, First Domestic. Look at what happened to First Domestic. The only indigenous insurance company we had on island that was born in Dominica. That was the first insurance company that was birthed in Dominica by Dominicans, that employed hundreds of Dominicans, where Dominicans went in, and some people, they got their first job. They became professionals there because they were trained there. They were trained there. They allowed this company to go under simply because the government is in direct competition with the local indigenous business owners in Dominica. When your government is in direct competition with you, when they are using the state's resources to go in competition with the business owners in Dominica, when they're using the state's resources to purchase government assets, look at public works. Who bought public works? This is only because of a rogue government. Where you ever heard that a government could just come in and sell the state's assets? Just sell it. Sell it to whom? Sell it to themselves. Use government's money to purchase government's property. Use the state's resources, the people's resources to purchase state's assets. It's only a rogue government that can get away with things like that. It's only a rogue government that will take our passports and sell our passports, give our passports to all sorts of greedy businessmen on island who will support the rogueness of the government. Give them the passports to sell, to make monies, and they pocket the money. How can you sell sovereign assets? How can you sell the sovereign asset and the income generated from that sovereign asset becomes your personal money, personal funds to go in personal bank accounts? This is rogue. This is just rogue. This is a country gone rogue. And this country is totally out of whack. This country is not governed by laws. And this is why we see that they can get themselves involved in all form of international kidnapping. This is why they can brutalize the Dominican people. This is why they can turn their guns and tear gas a whole sleeping community and shoot the people from the community to impose stolen elections on the people. It's only a rogue regime that can get away and do things like that and get away with it. And we are asking, how do we get past that? If we do not understand that we, the people, have the power, that power that is innate, that power that is inside of us, that power that is in our conscience, that power that tells us that this is right and this is wrong. That power that tells us we can no longer accept our own demise. We can no longer accept ourselves being sold into slavery with our own money. With our own money, we cannot allow ourselves to be taken for a ride anymore. We have to get up and realize that we, the people, have the power and we are stronger than the people in power. We have to get up and do something. We have to get up and take charge of our business, because if you hire somebody to work for you and the person is not working, the person has broken all the protocols of the business, all the ethical guidelines and standards of the business, then you have a right to fire that person. You have a right to terminate that person. You have a right to tell him, get out, leave, go home. I will take over my business. You have a right to take the keys of your business from that person. You don't have to beg that person, can you give me my key, please? No, you are the boss. You take your keys. Mr. Vital, can you chime in on this?
Right. I wanted to make it very, very clear, because you are quite right in everything you are saying. But maybe many people don't understand why NJAM has been formed. We understand all of these things, and you're quite right. But now is the time for us to act. That's why we're calling it joint action movement. We have sensitized people, and we will continue to sensitize people. But it's not just about acting. I know sometimes it's easy to say, man, we're just accepting anything. But we have to understand how this government operates. If anything, and they use some of their mind, or they pay others to strategize for them, they're thinking. And they are thinking through how to win elections. They are thinking through how to deceive the people. They are thinking through how to turn one person against the other. They are thinking through how to deny you of resources so that, or how to make you feel that better cannot be done, or that, you know, we are doomed, and so you'll hold on to that $5 and that $10. They're thinking through it. They're thinking through everything. And they are thinking through even international things. They are thinking through, for instance, how to put false images in the international press, so that if Dominicans do rise up, there will be a certain rhetoric out there that says, oh, well, it's the people, it's not the government. They are propping their image out there in all kinds of ways that are false. What I'm saying is this, what NJAM recognizes, and that's why we are assembling a team of people who can put their minds to work. We have to understand how they work, and we got to be smart enough to counter it. And that is exactly what we're saying. Now is not the time to just continue to talk. Now was the time for us to act, but not to act foolishly, to act with intelligence, to act to counter their foolishness, to act to make sure that Dominica will not continue to slip into their hands. And that is what it's about. That is why we are going to, for instance, decide, let's get that legislation, let's discuss it with the people, and let's come up with the people, bring the people together so that we can say, okay, this is great, this is reasonable, we want this done by a certain time. And if it's not done, that the people will take every action that is morally right to get what Dominica deserves. That's what it's all about now. But guess what? It takes all of us coming together. And that's our plea as NJAM. That is why we are seeking for the political parties, the trade unions, the individuals, the NGOs, for us to jointly act, to understand their strategy, and jointly act to bring more people together and stop this foolishness that's happening. This is action time, and that's what we're saying. This is action time, but this is time for us to act with good strategy to save Dominica. That is what NJAM is about.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Ken, for kind of putting the icing on the cake, as it were. As we kind of veer off into winding up that aspect of our discussion, it's already 5 minutes past 6, so we have gone about our expected closure time, but we can go up till 7 o'clock tonight based on the flow of the discussion. Before we veer off into the end jams aspect of engagement on the ground with the people, let me just go back to our guests here, Brother Winston and Brother Vital, aided by Marcelline, of course, to just this topic, rogue government and how we kill businesses, whatever the business is, what the health sector, the agricultural sector, the economy, whatever it is. Can we just, in a nutshell, kind of wrap it up here, but not also just wrapping it up here, offer any ways of solution, quote unquote, as to what we can do after we have spoken here tonight. What are the next steps in terms of backing up that talk now with the necessary reasonable actions on the ground as it were?
Do you want me to go ahead, Loftus?
Yeah, sure, sir, no problem.
Loftus, there's so many solutions that have been given by so many different, groups and stuff. But we have, as I said, the most important thing is the people. We cannot play blindsided to the nation, to the people. We need the people to come together. They are the ones that have the power. You understand? And we have to stop being chickens. We have to have the power and demand we want answers. Okay? We have to understand that this regime have put people in position to do their work. They're not doing the work of the nation, They're doing the work of that particular team or group of guys who came together and saw loopholes in the constitution where they can manipulate it and stay and have a good time. That's what's happening. It's just like Master talk about the housing with everybody living in one stuff. Why do you think they did this? They know they put a house, 2-bedroom on 4 pillars that the person they give there will be able to grow. They will build themselves and they will expand. They cripple them. A lady with 2 children in a house, the children grow, they make kids, 10 children in 2-bedroom house. That's what they want. So it still goes to the people.
Slum-like atmosphere.
It still goes to the people. The people have to look at their value. The people have to understand, I want more than that. I gave you a job. It's our taxpayers' money. We have to stop looking at these guys like as if they come with their trillions of dollars or they come from heaven. They are nothing. And you looking at them grow, you see their value is increasing while yours is decreasing. You decline and you accept it. Then you go, it's all about the people. We could talk, we could jump, as long as the people decide that enough is enough. And it has been enough a long time ago. And decide we want changes. We have to educate the people. We have to educate the masses, those young ones that know that kind of politics. And that kind of politics they know is give me something in my hand. They don't care the value of it, And before I close, let me just tell you one thing I tell Massey. And I tell other people. I could come down to Dominica with $200, yeah? I'm just doing a fast thing. Go to a bar. Say I go to the Reserve or Cassidy somewhere in a little bar. Everybody's having $1 drink. There's about 5 or 6 guys having $1 drink. I come, I buy myself a $5 drink and I give everybody their drink. The 6 guys or 5 guys. That's $5 drink. I give 5 guys. I look at the one that's speaking the most and realize he have leadership skills in him. I gave him another drink. Then I spend about $10, $11, $12. I leave. Next day I come back. The same guy I gave the other drink gonna say I'm his best friend. So I say friend more. Right away I'm his friend because I gave him $2 drink. Then now I can have him do stuff I want with the rest of the guys because at the end of the day I just have a few dollars. We settle for less. The man will not say, oh, this guy come and he drank a Guinness, he $5 drink and he watch him and he give me $1 drink. Why didn't he give me a $5 drink like his own? Let him see my value. It's how we do. The people have to get educated and understand that these people are growing in wealth, they're protecting their personal gain, and they don't care what about us as a nation. And they are organizing and putting in place for their future and for their foreign friends who are coming in to take what is our resources to benefit themselves, and they have a long-term dynasty rolling with. That's it. And Mr. Vital, we have to understand that. We need the people to unite and come together. They know what is going on, but they do not see a team of people to stand up with them. So that's where you have to rally. You have to rally the other NGO organizations that is involved in change and truth to power, so that we have a team. So this time about you, 5 from another one, 20 from there, we have 50, 60, 100 fellas as a team. People will start to feel there's a force to stand up with. But when one man come, 2 fellas come together, and after 1 talk, 2 talk, they decline, and everybody go back at their home to their family. Them guys don't worry. They will still pass whatever law they want. They will do whatever they know that is illegal to benefit their personal gain. We need a team effort, and we need the people to understand the true values. That's where we have to let the people know their true value, what they deserve, what they should appreciate for themselves. And people that come in from foreign need to understand when they land in this country, they better come good. They better land good. They should know that, listen, I'm not going to Dominica because I know I'm going to Dominica. I am. They're supposed to know when I come to Dominica, I come into Dominica to stand up and talk truth to power. Simple. And it's time we have to do that. Stand up as a people. Nothing about all them stuff and things. It's tough, bro. And I will repeat it myself again. There are people in position to avoid the reality of taking place on the ground. And that's why Patrick John fell, because they were not there. I will tell you something with the same Charles Savre we hear in here. Charles Savre is silent because he speaks. Crazy T, I will call the name because they're in the public. Crazy T was the only man, that's my friend, but he's the only man in the world to take a prime minister face and put on a donkey body and have a t-shirt all around walking, even in the Caribbean. He got quiet. Julius Timothy was the wizard. He got quiet because he was considered the ghetto, the poor man minister. Charlo get quiet. Charlo working all his life. You think Charlo care with that kind of style and the kind of lifestyle you live when you retire? It's personal gain. Even look at the fellas and them that are organized, the fellas that could speak. Because even if you might not like certain policies of Charles Savre, but when he speaks, he is very vibrant. You know, quiet place, Kyrie FM. Quiet places, there are people in position to block everything that's needed. Cecil Joseph is in DBS. When you understand your position to go in DBS, Cecil Joseph is the boy of the partner. Look at the pot. Who entering and leaving? Who's in charge of the pot? That's where you enter. That's where you leave. Who is the commissioner of police? Who is the deputy commissioner of police? We have to look at these things and understand this a regime, a road regime, as you all said, and put people in position to protect themselves, not country. All right? Not country. And is what are we going to do about it as a nation? The court is against us. The court is not for the nation. The court is for these guys. You know, we have to accept it, bro. It's the truth. Anyway, I've been talking enough, man. I don't know what else to say.
Lofty, can I say something?
Yes, I yield to you, Marcelline, and then I will want Ken to kind of wind up on that topic, and then we veer off into the NJAM's press release.
Yes. What Jeff said is so true. And the names he mentioned, he needed to add a Joseph Isaac to it. Add a Joseph Isaac to the list of names. Because in any, I don't know, in anywhere where there's a functioning government and functioning law and order, a functioning investigative body would have had Joseph Isaac on the investigations. Because I don't know, it's not in this American political system that he would be able to just sit inside of the House as the Speaker of the House without asking him a few questions. because we all know that all Joseph Isaac's business was on collapse to the point, and we heard it from the Rottweiler in the house when he told him he could not even keep a bakery, the doors of his bakery open, when he did not even have to buy water to put in the flour. And it's water, you put water in flour, it just rises to make bread. Not even that he could keep afloat. But as soon as he left the doors of the opposition, all his businesses are up and flourishing. When the businesses of the Dominican, his businesses were under, just like the businesses of Dominicans, but his businesses are all up and flourishing. And these are the people we consider to have rotted the foundation of Dominica, the foundation of anything legitimate, the foundation of anything authentic, the foundation that would have made this government not a rogue regime. Now we are asking questions as to how we go forward, how we fix that. But this is the foundation of the rogue regime with all the names mentioned. If you have a foundation with woodens in the foundation, you call it coulbois in Dominica. You have woodens in the foundation. The first thing you have to do is to exterminate the woodens in your foundation. You have to treat your foundation. You have to get rid of the termites in that foundation before you start building, before you start laying down the block work to fix that foundation. So that is the only way we have to fix the system in Dominica, is to get these people out of the way. Get them out of the way so that we can reform our systems in Dominica. And if they do not want to act with honesty and integrity, then they can no longer stand in the way as impediments to justice, impediments to our democracy in Dominica. So we have to first look at that, because how are we going to move forward when there's a big stone in the road? There is a big stone in the road, as we normally say it. Or go wash a shimela. This guy from Atkinson has a song which he sings, me or go wash a shimela. This is what is the government of Dominica, is the big rock in the road that should be removed at all costs. And the people need to apply the people's power to push off that rock. When you see the engineers cutting a road, and there comes a time when they can't go forward, what do? They use the drill on the rock, and they drill the holes in the rock, and they break it to pieces in order for them to continue demarcating that road. So this is what we have to do, and we have to act. We have sat there for 20 years and complaining, and we need to find a way. It is 2022, and before you know it, we are going into another election with no electoral reform. And then that is when we can kiss everything democratic goodbye, if that election comes with whatever Byron has stated, which the first thing they're going to do is try to ram it down the throats of Dominicans. When it goes into the House, is the ayes have it. So we now have to mobilize, as Mr. Kent Vital says. We have to mobilize. We have to act now. Now is the time. Now is the time to act in order to put our act together. Else we will remain as a lost nation with our democratic rights gone in the valleys of Dominica. Thank you, Lofty.
All right, thank you, Marcelline. Kent, let me move across to you for your ending or closing comments on that segment of the program. The topic being, just to highlight that again, for those persons who may have just tuned in, rogue government, how it kills. So we want now, Kent, from you to hear from you, your closing comments on that segment. After you do that, I will go into reading the press release of NJAM, that is a newly formed NGO in Dominica. And I can tell you there are some fiery questions, should I say that, or comments directed at NJAM. And so you are the chair of that NGO, so you will respond accordingly after.
Okay, great. Well, let me end with the good news, so to speak. Because I honestly know, and sometimes I listen a lot to people, and I know where their heart is, and I know their heart is in the right place. I know what they want out of it. But I often try to take a strategic viewpoint. So I do understand that our people need to rise up, and that is very, very much so. But my mind goes beyond just saying our people need to rise up. My mind goes to the point that suggests, why are our people not rising up? Because it's only when you understand why that you'll understand what it takes to get them to rise up. And this is what NJAM is seeking to do. We have to understand the why question. And I'm not going to discuss too much of the why question because it just gives us a way strategy. If you understand what I'm saying, we will do it. We will not necessarily talk it. We will do what we think it takes because we understand why people are not rising up, because we'll seek to understand it and try to do the strategies. So I like to encourage people instead to, do what it takes and encourage organizations to strategize. So let's start with the good news. And it will take us into the press release. But the good news is, and I keep trying to remind people of this, the good news is the last elections showed that the people of Dominica have already rejected the Civic regime. That's the good news. They are already rejected. They have only held on to power because they stole the elections. They were fraudulent. So the challenge is, how do we overcome that going forward? First, how do we get even more people to understand what's going on and to reject him even more than rejected the last time? And secondly, how do we ensure that the same fraud that occurred last time doesn't happen? Of course, it starts with electoral reform, and there are other things that we can do. So that is what we have to think. You're right. We cannot allow that to happen again. We got to learn all the lessons, but we're starting from a good news point that the majority have already rejected it. We're going to build on that. The other piece of good news, which will take us into where we're going, and I have to say it's good news because NJAM put out the challenge and for people to rally and for people to begin to come together, exactly what we're asking for. And of course, we have to stick to it. But I have to say to you, the reaction so far, to my mind, is very good news. We have had many people deciding to support our call and our cause. I was just reading through from Thompson Fontaine. I had a chat with IP, Pascal, and others who are understanding what we're talking about, and what people are beginning to say, yes, let's begin to do it together. Let's begin to act together. But let's begin to act strategically, smartly. If we do that together, we bring our energies, not just our energies and our intelligence, and we act together, we will save our country. So yes, it's a rogue regime, but we will stop this rogueness in our country, and we will restore our country to goodness. And our spiritual people have a role to play. So I can end back with what I started with, back to Psalms 94, verse 20 to 24, which says, an evil leader cannot claim that God is on his side. An evil leader who enacts injustice he brings injustice through his laws. And that it is part of our responsibility as Christian people to lift our country before God and ask God to deliver us from this rogue regime. So we have God on our side in that sense. If we humble ourselves, seek God's face, that's part of our strategy going forward to reject this rogue regime. So I want to some hope that we will turn our situation around. And people are beginning to rally around. I want to continue to encourage people to rally around. So let's not just, let's change the rhetoric. Let's stop saying when our people will rise up, and let's begin to say, let's play our part. So we are calling people to sign up with NJAM. We're calling on people because there's a lot of work to be done. NJAM is willing to organize it, but now we need foot soldiers. We need people to come in and help. And let's actually do it. If you want to work with another organization, that's fine. Moonserve is doing some good work. CCM is doing some good work. And we will seek to work with all of those as well. So let's change the rhetoric from people need to do this to we are going to do this and I'm going to give my part. So I want to encourage all of us. It's time for us now to all say, let's do it together.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kent. Thank you very much, guys, for so far a very informative, very passionate conversation, especially from Brother Winston's end. Persons are loving what they're hearing based on the feedback that are monitoring on the live feed. Now, let me see if I can get to the press release of NJAM, bearing in mind, what's the time? It's 26 after 6. We will seek to get off the program for sure by 7 o'clock. So let's see how we can condense the rest of the program going forward and still have time to take some 1 or 2 comments on the live feed. Let me see if I can get to that press release of NJAM. Yes, it says here on an NJAM's letterhead, Roseau Commonwealth of Dominica, press release, NJAM to launch electoral reform now campaign. It starts by saying, Roseau, 23rd day of January 2022. The National Joint Action Movement, that is NJAM, intends to immediately seek to sensitize the public to and increase their participation in efforts towards securing meaningful electoral reform. NJAM continues to advocate for modern electoral legislation which guarantees free, fair, transparent, and constitutionally protected elections, resulting in the people's choice of representatives. NJAM will therefore embark on a campaign coined, open quote, electoral reform now, close quote, proposing a roadmap for the passage of satisfactory electoral legislation in the Commonwealth of Dominica by November 3rd, 2022. That is the 44th anniversary of Dominica's independence. It continues by saying, in the last 4 election cycles, the incumbent has repeatedly exploited the deficiencies, inconsistencies, and loopholes in Dominica's existing electoral legislation with impunity, thereby gaining unfair advantage in the elections. The areas illegally exploited include the use of bloated voters lists, political campaigns funded without declaration as to the sources of funding contrary to modern democratic ideals, absence of identification cards to confirm eligibility of persons voting, the existence of an electoral commission legally constituted with a majority clearly partisan, working in the interest of the incumbent, along with the transportation of eligible/ineligible voters from overseas contrary to law. It continues by saying here, as it becomes obvious that governance is becoming more subservient to one man's instructions, the growing consensus by residents, regardless of political persuasions, appears to be that the incumbent's actions, re-elections, are unacceptable. Certainly, were it not for the existence of an electoral commission with a politically biased majority intent on fulfilling the agenda of the incumbent, it would not have become possible for the abuses of the electoral system to succeed. When law-abiding citizens observe these systematically unfair actions executed by an obviously partisan electoral commission, they cannot be faulted for promoting concern nationally. At public consultations organized by the Dominica Business Forum, Inc. on June 17, 2021, Sir Byron promised widespread consultation with all stakeholders and to conclude with public consultation where he would present his findings. Sir Dennis Byron has since gone silent. A Dominican News Online reported Sir Dennis Byron's alleged intention to submit his report to government at the end of January 2022. If true, this would suggest secrecy attempts to avoid public consultations and failure by the Sir Dennis Byron to honor his promise to deliver his report publicly. Notwithstanding that the government of Dominica, open quote here, led by the elected representatives and senators of the Dominica Labour Party, close quote, is responsible for the financing of the activities of the Electoral Commission, it is clearly recorded in the Hansard of the Parliament of Dominica that all matters related to the administering, managing, and implementation of the electoral process in Dominica are the responsibility of the constitutionally independent Electoral Commission. NJAM remains extremely skeptical of the government's behavior re-electoral reform, particularly after observing how egregious amendments to the Procurement Act were quietly passed under the parliamentary majority. Moreover, based on the past practices, it would not be surprising if the ruling political regime would seek to present electoral legislation in Parliament on a timeline that would not allow the necessary public consultation on the issue. This is even more disturbing if the ruling political regime would behave in such manner even while the nation anxiously awaits the report from Sir Dennis Byron, a consultant engaged to prepare a report with recommendations for electoral reform in Dominica. Putting it bluntly, a fundamental question that needs addressing is, having regard to the foregoing and open manipulation of the ruling political regime has been engaged in over the years to tilt the electoral playing field in its favor, whether there is a sinister move on the part of the political regime to ignore the wishes of the Dominican people for free and fair elections in Dominica. NJAM is therefore appealing to all Dominicans at home and abroad to join in the initiative for action towards the achievement of acceptable electoral reform in 2022. Whereas the state authorities are attempting to give the impression that the enactment of this new electoral legislation is a complicated exercise, the population must be made aware that all the pressing issues respecting electoral reform in Dominica have been fully addressed in the relevant reports from the Commonwealth Secretariat, the Organization of American States, and the CARICOM Secretariat. Final paragraph reads, a special appeal goes out to all Dominican attorneys at law to join in the campaign, Electoral Reform Now 2022, to bring their legal expertise to bear on the development, preparation, and submission of a body of draft legislation based on best practice as contained in the electoral laws already existing in jurisdictions such as Jamaica and Barbados. It is to be hoped that when the developed body of legislation to bring about electoral reform is tabled, presented, debated, and passed in Parliament, and assented to by His Excellency the President of Dominica, that Dominica stands a good chance for national reconciliation and for embarking on a solid path towards sustainable development. The last line reads, NJAM's proposed roadmap to electoral reform in 2022 will be launched on Monday, February 7th, 2022, with a virtual electoral reform now rally. Yes, Kent, that basically it's the end of the press release of NJAM, which you are the chair of. I am the public relations officer and other noble minded persons on the executive as well as the membership as well. One of the questions that keeps coming up on the live, Kent, is basically, I think you answered it in part already, but for the benefit of those persons who ask the question, I will ask it to you again. How is NJAM positioning itself to basically spearhead the efforts on the ground to bring about free and fair elections? Kent.
Right. So that a lot of that information will be relayed during the rally on the 7th, where we are going to put to the public the roadmap. By roadmap, we mean a set of steps and actions that we believe would be useful and important to get us to a point by November where there is electoral reform, where we encourage electoral reform, where we insist on electoral reform. We have to have those steps, and we will put that forward. But I would have to say to you, we have already begun to engage in some of those steps, because key to this, and as we have been saying throughout this program tonight, is the people coming together, key to this. And we have already been working on the discussions. We have already been setting up some of the meetings with the stakeholders. We have already been contacting the folks, because we have to do that, so that if we were to say that on March the 7th or April the 9th, we are going as a nation to petition the president to do certain things, then we want everybody to be, I just use that is not one of the things. I just say that just to right? I was looking for something a little more practical to demonstrate. But what we want is everybody to rally around those action points. And we will take those action points. One of the action points for sure is going to be the preparation of the same thing, Marcelline, you were asking about. We're not just going to wait for Byron to present something to us. There's lots of good information. We're going to take the action, prepare some legislation in consultation with all the stakeholders, the opposition parties and so on, prepare something, have a discussion on those things with our faith-based organizations, with our unions, with everyone, and say to the government, look, this is reasonable. You should implement this. Take it forward. It's reasonable, it's easy, other countries have done it. We think it can be done within a month, within 2 months. And for the people to be ready to take actions if it's not done within the time frame. Take whatever actions are morally right. That is where we're going. But it takes starting with bringing the people to understand our joint action is necessary, and those discussions have already started. Or arrangements for those discussions have already started. So this is what we're going to do. I think it was said earlier today, but it's really, I think the one thing the government would not be able to stand to is all the people standing up together and saying enough is enough. You take this action or else we will take these other actions ourselves.
And someone is asking you an all-important question. I think you answered it already, but I just need you to reiterate that point for that person asking the question and others. Kent, will you be reaching out to the other political parties to join the fight for electoral reform at NJ?
Oh, definitely, most definitely. In fact, a while ago I was saying we've already started the process of reaching out, and that includes the political parties. We've already started that process. I was on the phones for the last 2 days talking to people, and we'll be talking to others. We'll be drafting letters and talking to others, but definitely, this is about a Dominica movement. We don't want this to be a European movement or Freedom Party movement or APP movement. We would like this to be a Dominica movement. We decide, all of the people, we the people, we want it now. Electoral reform now in 2022.
Yes. Paul Patterson is also asking an all-important question here, Kent, and again, it is directed to you. What do you do, Kent? And I want to think that person who is directing that at NJAM by extension. What do you do if the PM dissolve parliament and call elections before the specified date in the press release of November 4th, 2022?
Well, you know, I don't think the caller or the question wants us to expose our hands. There are some things we will take as we go along, step by step by step, but we will be preparing the people. We have to have certain discussions. I wouldn't be able to say that in any event until we have had all the discussions with the appropriate persons. I may say A, and then somebody else say, no, we cannot do A, or so we will try to firm up some of the specific steps as we go along. What we can be sure about is that, what we can say is that we realize the mood in the country among the political parties and among many people in the country is that now is the time. We want this. And if I were to judge from the past, from what they have been saying, I don't think it's going to be a problem to get them to agree on certain actions, on certain types of actions. I think it's a matter of coordination. I think we are there. We are getting there. So while I will not be able to tell the caller exactly what that action is, but I could tell you that discussion is going to happen. And at the right time, we'll inform the entire nation of what that action will be. If we say certain things too early, we play into the hands of the government.
Yeah, thank you, Kent. We have like 20 more minutes again to read the discussion. I don't know if our brother here, Winston, want to chime in and then move across to Marcelline, and then we kind of bring it to a wrap thereafter.
Mr. Vital, that's a good approach. I pray God blessings upon that approach, because we really need something that is of, well, let's say a togetherness approach to have change, because we have to understand, as I said previously, that we are people in position that is at all means will block what is a reality and that is better for the nation. So it's a good approach. I'll be with you 100%. Whatever I can do, whatever contribution I can give, small as it is, when come for that time, I will. But one other thing I need to tell you, Loftus, keep on the work. You're doing what you have to do. You a determined young man. You're blessed. I like to tell people they're blessed, because we're blessing another day, I'm not blessings, but I'm just saying you're blessed. And, but we just need a change. We need the people to come together to understand the true values. Unless our nation and people don't understand the true value and stop settling for less, when they change that whole mindset, we will start to see results. And let's hope your direction take the right course. And as I said, we're there with you, bro. We're there with you. We know you mean well. We know you mean well, and your team.
Anything for this blessed land, Dominica, nothing is too much for me to give. Nothing.
I know, man. You're good, Loftus. You're a good person. You're a blessed person, man.
Thanks for the support.
Marcelline Edwards, and stop calling Vital Edward, okay? Marcelline. I love all of you, man. I'm blessed to you, man. I listen.
Yes, Marcelline.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Lofty, and thanks, Jeff and Kent. Loftus is not going to get me to call, to brand Kent Vital as Kent Edwards. Because I would just say, Kent, you need your holy water. You need to go to that, I don't know if they still call them the Holy Father for that holy water, or maybe to the, what you call his name, Bishop Mauser. Because...
But listen, I think I have some relatives who are Edwards, You remember we had he was a principal of Rosa Boys School a long time ago. We used to call him Foggy. He was an Edwards.
Okay.
He was my relative.
Okay, but you don't want the exact Kent Edwards. You don't want that yes on you. No way. Yeah. So, man, Dominica is our homeland, and by all means and any means, we have to stand up for country. We have to stand up to defend our land, because if we don't, that little piece of rock is going to be non-existent. We are no longer going to hold on to it if we don't fight for it, because it's good enough to fight for it. And if our ancestors made that ultimate sacrifice with the blood, the sweat, and the tears for that little piece of rock, which they handed to us on a platter, free from colonial rule, I think there's everything in it that we should fight for. Because when we look at Dominica, there is no other island in the Caribbean that looks like Dominica. The greenery, the landscape, the natural assets, the natural attributes of our country, the rivers with pristine waters, the forests. It was always said, or it is always said, if you plant a leaf in Dominica, it will grow. It will grow. So as a result, we have to protect that little piece of rock. We can't just leave it up to the different factions of the rogue regime to plant their feet in there and just destroy it. We can't just leave it up to a police force that will arrest and brutalize the people for exercising their democratic rights, their rights to protest. When we know for a fact that this police force is a criminal leg of the regime in Dominica. We have seen so many fake arrests. We have seen so many times they picked up, over $500,000, briefcases, suitcases of money, laundered monies, found in properties associated with well-known labor rights. To this present, those investigations are still pending, with no arrests, like those investigations were dead on arrival. There are government ministers whose assets and lifestyle cannot match their legitimate income. Those occurrences give rise to state that we are living under a rogue regime, and there is no way we should accept that as law-abiding citizens, as bona fide Dominicans with the rights to stand up for our land and defend our land, and to take our places under the Constitution, our rightful places as bona fide Dominicans under the Constitution. Because this is our land. This land of ours is not only for the so-called bourgeoisies who feel that they are more entitled than the Kalinagos and other Black and brown people roaming this beautiful country of ours, our Whitey Kubuli, our Dominica. And that is why we have to stand together with a united force and a united voice for a better country, a better Dominica, for Dominicans living at home and abroad, for Dominicans living outside of Dominica who finally want to return to their country of their birth in their retirement with the wealth that they have accumulated, to relax in a country that belongs to them, not to the Chinese, as I said, not to the Nassifs, not to the Astafans, and all the so-called bourgeoisies, the jump-up paupers, who now tell us how good the CBI and passports is, the sales of CBI passport is, and how much of a blessing it is, because they are solely benefiting while the rest of the masses are submerged in poverty. This land is ours, and we will do anything and everything to preserve it. We will stand up with our lives, like how our ancestors did, like how the Kalinago people did, like how our the Black people, the slaves who rebelled against the slavery. We will stand up for our land, because this is what we have. This is what is ours. We can't afford to lose it. We can't afford to lose that piece of gem. We can't afford to let them take the best of it and give us the worst of it. Because the worst of it and the best of it and everything of it belongs to us. It is ours. We inherited it. And this was paid for with blood, with sweat, and with tears. So we shall join our forces, our ambitions, our passion, and we shall unite our forces with all the different civic groups in Dominica and persons who want to stand for country, even if they're not part of the civic groups. We shall stand together for Dominica. We shall stand as we the people. We shall stand because we are the ones who gave the Constitution its power. It's not the other way around. We shall stand because these government, these rogues in office, they are accountable to us. We are their bosses. It's not the other way around. And we have to stand together for country, to take back our country, because that is where we have allegiance to. That is what we're supposed to have allegiance to the Commonwealth of Dominica, that when we put up our flag, when we wave that flag, we are waving that flag because it means something to us. We are waving that flag as patriotic Dominicans and not scared patriotic supporters. Yeah. And that is what we have to stand up for country, not for political party and political colors, not for a one-man rogue regime. We have to stand for country because this is ours. If not, we are going to lose it. And we don't have much time. The time is now.
All right, thank you, Marcelline. Very, very, very well put. I must say you ended on a high note there. I can tell you that for sure. Brother Kent Vital, your closing comments. We have like 7 minutes to wind up that all-important discussion we have in there. Thank you, Kent.
Well, I think we have said quite a bit here today. So I just want to continue to encourage all of us to play a part. And let me say something to the people of the diaspora, because I see many of you have quite a heart for your nation. And we have to, this is a special and blessed nation, I have to agree. And we have to make Dominica a Dominica that consists of those of us abroad and those of us here. So we have our part to play and you have your part to play. Some of you at some point will come home, but I have so appreciate the fact that so many of you remain interested and vested in our country. And if it wasn't for some of you, our country would have been even worse than it is. Because I keep saying that a big part of what supports Dominican, and I think you had it on your program some time ago, you were talking about it, is really the support of the diaspora. The fact that our people send monies home to their families, to pay light bills, to do a lot of that, and that accounts for about 7.5% of GDP, of the total production in our country. It contributes more than tourism. It contributes more than manufacturing, each of them individual, even combined sometimes. So I have to say thanks, and I want you to continue to remain invested. I want you to become part of NANJAM as well. Sign up with us. You can sign too, even from out there. And you can make your contribution, because we're going to need your contributions. This is going to be all of us in this thing. And I want to appeal to those of us who have a Christian conscience. And we pray, to also pray, like I've said, and let's take our country back. Let's stand for, all of us, we should be standing for righteousness. And the scripture says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to every people. And I know many of us at home and abroad, we want to stand for the right thing when it comes to national governance. We want to stand for righteousness. So let's stand for righteousness. And let me just end by praying. Let's pray exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the program, Psalms 90, by just saying, Father, in the name of Jesus, we reject and we realize, according to your scripture, that a government that uses the government system for injustice cannot be of you. We pray that you deliver us from this government, this rogue government, this government that is engaging in injustice to the people. Deliver us from them. Bring their work to naught. Destroy their works, and let your people get to a point where they can rejoice in a nation that is restored, in a nation that is saved. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you very much, Kent. You started on a very spiritual path and you ended on a very spiritual note. I want to thank you very much for that, brother. You added much to the discussion this afternoon in terms of the facts and the factual information that you brought about our topic this afternoon at Civic Vibes. Just how a rogue government or a rogue governance can kill a country. And so we want to thank you very much, those Marcelline, myself, Paula as well, and those of us in the engine room making things happen here. So we really want to thank you profusely, Ken, for taking time off your Sunday. I know you're a very busy man, you're a family man, you're a farmer as well.
Yes.
So we thank you for the time.
Indeed.
Time well spent, I must say. Time well
Yes,
spent.
indeed. You're welcome, my brother.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Brother Winston, you yourself, I can tell you really added the flame.
The
that
flame.
needed this afternoon. A lot of persons are still in sync with your passionate contribution here. So we want to thank you profusely as well for your very passionate contribution. I know you have a heart for Dominica. You're miles out there. But trust me, bro, I know whenever you speak, I hear that level of conviction comes across that you'd rather be in Dominica,
Anytime.
ensuring Dominica grow than being out there and helping another man's country. But you know, it is what it is. You are still doing, you're still making your contribution from out there. And so we thank you very much for that. Yes, peace. Just before I get to Marcelline and our closing up, I got this afternoon a very, well, somebody was trying to call me from Bryson Louis' phone, and I had to put it off because, you know, I'm on air talking to you guys. But I got a message from that number, and if it's not the truth, then, you know, I apologize, but I think I can take it to the bank in terms of the message that I got. It's a very unfortunate message, I must say, but I just want to alert the listening public that I got a message from one of our elders in the Salisbury area. And let me just go back to the message. Here it reads from Brother Bryson Louis' phone. Where is that message? Where is that message? Yeah, okay. The message reads, "Good day. I just want to inform you that Bryson Louis has passed. I tried to engage the person who texted me that information, but they have not responded as yet. But as I said, that message came from Bryson Louis' phone, and I know, you know, just dealing with Brother Louis, he has this gentleman, you know, normally do his transactions for him. So I'll be trying to follow up with the accuracy and factual statement of the factual necessary of that statement. But if that is the case, we at Civic Vibes want to condole with his family at this time on the passing of a very, very patriotic man. I tell you, he served Dominica in many, many ways. That is elderly Bryson Louis from Salisbury area, and by extension, the Louis family as well. We want to extend our sympathies to them, if, a big if that is the case. But based on the information I got from the person that I got it, I think, you know, I can push it out there. But I'll be fact checking that as we move along. Also too, yes.
Is that Myrna's father?
No, Myrna's father is Whitney Louis.
Oh, I was
not this one.
Okay.
Yeah, this one, Bryson Louis, he worked on the Patrick Jones regime. You know, he was one of the lead men in those time in the 70s. Also too, Civic Vibes has a lot of work to do. We are engaging ourselves in a lot of work, and I want to take a cue from Brother Vital. The good book says, money answereth all things. So without money, it's true we can talk the talk, but we need money to execute some of the programs, some of the projects on the ground that are ongoing. So here is a special appeal to all of you who know somebody, who have money, who know that, you know, just, we have a Civic Vibes account. You can, you know, make the donations there. We do the Western Union, we do the Cash App, we do the Zelle, whatever it is, just get in contact with Marcelline over there in the New York area, myself or Paul on the ground, and we can advise you how you can make that much needed financial contribution to continue that all important work of Civic Vibes on the ground. It would be remiss of me though if I don't give the listening public and viewing public an idea of our guests for next week. That is confirmed. We have a Dr. Hines, Dr. David Hines from, well, he's from Guyana to be precise. A very patriotic brother, son of the soil of Guyana. I think he lives somewhere out of Guyana now, but he will be, or he has confirmed to be our guest here next week. A very, very, very interesting guy in terms of his comments. And so we ask all our listening audience, all our viewing audience, to please stay tuned for another intriguing conversation next week with Brother David Hines, Pan-Africanist brother. You know, he's a very democratic minded brother. He's a civic brother. When you hear this guy speak, I can tell you, you just have to listen. So we are expecting to host him here next week on this platform of Civic Vibes. So that is all for me here in a nutshell. Marcelline Edwards, Paula Celestine, myself, we are saying thank you guys for coming on. And to all our viewers, all our listeners, you know what to do, guys. Just share the live, share the message, talk to somebody, tell them, call your neighbor, tell them what you heard here on Civic Vibes this afternoon, knowing fully well it is by we touching, pressing flesh of each other, then that work for Dominica will be realized.
Thank you.